Hey, what's up? Welcome to Normal America Stream. We got a weird show tonight. Hope everyone's doing great. So it's Friday night. Um, I wanted to stream earlier, but we were at my parents' house with Hankster. He was having a lot of fun, so ended up getting back a little late. Anyways, the reason it's going to be weird is he fell asleep, and my wife, for whatever reason, unlike normal, decided she was going to go in his room with him. Which means that, oh crap. No. Which means that the dogs couldn't be left in the living room by themselves because they're mischievous. So now they're upstairs with me and my office door is open. So one, I have to keep it down a little because the door's open so the dogs can get in and out. Secondly, you're likely to see like the camera get knocked over or something because the buttheads are running around playing. They already knocked my camera off balance once. So it could be fun. You could see wires ripped out or who knows with these two characters. But I hope everyone's having a great day. I am. I'm having a fantastic day. It was a lot of fun at my parents' house. Hank getting to see the grandparents loves that. So getting to that age where we need to get him out to the grandparents more. We really do. I think that he enjoys it there. And I think that's really important. When I was young, I loved hanging out with my grandparents, particularly my dad's parents. Unfortunately, they both ended up in a nursing home. When I was a teenager, I used to hate that my dad and mom made me go with them 3 times a week for at least 2 hours a time, sometimes longer, to the nursing home. So every Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, barring like I was out of town for some reason, we would go to the nursing home. And as a teenager, as like a 14-year-old, it was the pits because you wanted to be out playing with your friends. But now that I'm older and my grandparents have passed on, I'm so thankful for that time and thankful that my parents drugged me along, made me a better person, and it made me appreciate them. So now as an older dad, I want my son to make sure he has a good relationship with his grandparents. And he's fortunate he has 3 sets of grandparents because Courtney's mom and dad had split up when she was younger. And so now they've both sort of remarried. And so he's got 2 grandmas and grandpas on his mom's side and one on my side, and it's really cool to see him. He's getting older, and he's like, he loves going into different houses. My parents are crazy. My dad used to have a pet skunk. He doesn't have that anymore, but they got guinea pigs and chinchillas and a parrot and a dog, and so Hank just had a blast playing with all the animals, and my mom collects toy horses, which are collectibles, but to him they're toys, so he had a blast. We had a lot of fun. He was playing so much. He wanted pizza. He insisted on getting pizza. So we bought pizza, drove it to my parents' house. He sits next to the pizza the whole way in the car, keeps saying, open the pizza, open the pizza. And when we get there, I was like, you ready for pizza? He says, no, I'm too busy playing. And so he didn't even eat pizza while we were there. No, my dad's skunk name was Gypsy. They actually had a skunk before that. I forget what its name was, but Gypsy was its name. And it was descented, but it still vaguely smelled of skunk. But my dad was the skunk guy in town. I'd run into people like, is your dad the one that goes? Like, he would take it to, like, the fair or, like, local events, like the, a parade or something in town. That town that I grew up in is called New Bethlehem. They have a peanut butter factory there. Smucker's Peanut Butter. Have you ever seen, it's called Goober. It's the peanut butter and jelly striped. So it's one jar with striped peanut butter and jelly in it. They made it in the town I grew up in. So they have a festival called the Peanut Butter Festival. But Gypsy was their name. Oh, yeah, I'm not the only one who knew Pet Skunk then. Robert knows. Was it deveined? I don't know if that's the term for it. But it was surgically had its scent gland removed. But it was friendly. It really was. It would wrestle with the dogs. They're nocturnal though, so it would sleep most of the day. But this thing was a behemoth too. It got really big, and its favorite thing to eat was pancakes. They had food that they bought for it, like specialized, but then they would always give it every day a little kid-sized pancake. It loved it. Loved blueberries too. So, but yeah. So, anyways, what I wanted to talk about tonight, I'm going to try to keep it down, not yell too much. So we'll see if we get any callers. Might have to be more reserved than normal. Last time I did a stream, I was yelling at people. Maybe this time I'd keep it a little calmer, huh? Sorry, just looking at something. Wanted to talk about the transcript of the Bidens being released. Now, it's difficult to talk about this. I have to be honest because I've been ridiculously busy yesterday and today, and so I have not got to fully read through. So both the transcripts of Hunter Biden and James Biden, who's Joe Biden's brother, have been released. James I've went through almost none of. Hunter's I went through maybe 30 pages. But when I say go through, I'm going fast. They're like just reading. And so I got some initial impressions, and I see sort of some of the posts that people were making about it, but I definitely want to go through more thoroughly both of those and then the Tony Bobulinski testimony to see, because Bobulinski's going to contradict some of what they say. So I wanted to talk about the other thing I thought was worth talking about was 2 journalists now being arrested. The guy from, well, not arrested, I guess. Yeah, sort of speed reading, I guess you could say. Looking for key terms, reading sort of the parts I thought would be most interesting. But that does not always paint a full picture, so I definitely want to read it all. Excuse me. Nonetheless, so there's that. This guy, Baker, he works for the Blaze. He was arrested. He had to turn himself into the FBI today for reporting on January 6th. And then Catherine Herridge wasn't really arrested, but she's being fined civilly because she was doing stories that were critical of the Biden administration, FBI, and other sorts of things. Man, I feel like I got to sneeze. It's terrible. I look like I've been doing some nose stuff, but I had drugs and whatever. I assure you I haven't been. I think I got a cold coming on. Anyways, Catherine Herridge now, the FBI is now going after her, and they want, or the Biden DOJ, I guess, they want her sources, particularly involving a story she was doing with people in the Biden administration and a university with some connections to China. And they want her government sources, which as any good, I haven't been hanging out with that, any good journalist should do. She's not giving up her sources. Now they're fining her $800 a day. And then we'll see if it proceeds from there. But that's the country we live in now. There's so few people in the legacy media that actually try to, hold truth to power and actually do stories that are critical of prominent Democrats. It's almost none of them. And when you do, the lesson learned is we will come after you. You will be fired. We will come after you. We will come after your sources. And the hope of that is to chill journalists from doing that, but more importantly, to chill sources from doing that. For example, do you recall when Rachel Maddow got our hands on Donald Trump's tax returns? Did they fine her until they found her source? Did they? No, that was critical of Donald Trump. All the leaks that you saw coming out about the FBI investigation into Trump, did they fine any of the media outlets until they got their source? No, they didn't. But they will Catherine Herridge, because her stories were critical of the Biden administration. Now, you'll remember this is very similar to what happened in the last Democratic administration, the Obama administration. With that administration, there was a guy who worked for Fox named James Rosen who was doing stories critical of Obama, and they literally spied on Rosen's personal phone calls and his family's, his father's. They went after more whistleblowers in the Obama administration than all other administrations combined. And yet, when Trump was in office, one of the things that people said made him the most dangerous was he was dangerous to a free press. How? Where were you all? Right, they raided James O'Keefe for Ashley Biden's diary. We know they spied on Tucker Carlson. That's right. Where are all the free speech champions? Heard an awful lot about Navalny and how terrible Russia is and how Russia jails journalists and goes after them. Where are they today? You heard any talk of it other than the usual right-wing figures? Where are they about the arrest of Baker? Now, Baker was someone who had footage, was writing stories critical of the misrepresentation of the footage of January 6th. He was in there on January 6th and was recording things. There were people from journalist outlets that were also in there, like I believe I've read that there were New York Times reporters that were in the Capitol on January 6th. They have not been charged. The charge is There's a couple charges of like sort of disrupting processes and stuff like that, but the major charge is that he was on restricted grounds. He wasn't allowed to be there. You remember when Stephen Colbert's people got into the Capitol and weren't allowed to be there? Were any of them charged? No. Do you remember incident after incident we've seen in just the past 3 months alone when pro-Palestinian people have gotten into the Capitol? Were any of them charged? No. Isn't that strange? Oh, Julian Assange, of course. Though you have to blame Trump for that as well. He could have pardoned him. Where's the outrage? The legacy media isn't media. The mainstream media isn't media. It is propaganda. That's it. Now, I've said this before. It's a difficult thing to talk about, but just because I might not like a particular institution doesn't mean that there can't be decent people within it. For example, I wouldn't say because I hate CNN that no one working at CNN is good. That's not necessarily true. For example, they might have a fantastic weather division. I don't know. Or maybe there are people working on local stories that are great. Or there might be great people there that want to do stories that basically they're just not allowed to do by the editors or the people that are running. And there are certainly people that are worse than others. And that could be true at the New York Times, the Washington Post, exactly. I did see that New York Times story. We talked about that the other day. Whoopsie. We were told that's just a crazy conspiracy theory. That can't be true. We still need to fund Ukraine to fund those secret bases. It's all right, Zygmunt. We got to fund those secret bases, right? So CBS has Catherine Herridge, who was good. They may have other people, I don't know. But overall, as a brand, they suck. Like all the other legacy medias. Do you remember when Trump kicked Jim Acosta? Jim Acosta basically was the Peter Doocy. I still say that Doocy's sort of a plant. Now, I think Doocy's legitimate in that he believes the questions he's asking are important and he's allowed to ask those questions. But I think the regime says there will be one person that could ask difficult questions, but even those sorts of questions will be managed. Can I give you the TLDR of the New York Times story? Sure. So it was what? And after the 2014, the revolution and all of that, and the ousting of Yanukovych and then Poroshenko, basically the CIA and NGOs started to put all sorts of money into Ukraine, and the CIA was operating bases, hidden bases, basically, with the point of pointing out Russian targets and things like that, and helping the Ukrainian military push back against Ukraine. That's basically the gist of it. So anyways, Jim Acosta on him. Remember when Trump kicked him out of a press corps? And Jim Acosta wouldn't even ask questions. He would just be like, Mr. Trump, you're a liar. Mr. President, liar. You're terrible. What about this? And Trump kicks him out of the one press briefing for acting a fool. And all of the media, including places that you were supposed to be oppositional to the New York Times and CNN, like Fox News, all of these media people are like, that's wrong. That's an attack on the press. Yeah, see it, right. It's an attack on the press. But when there's legitimate attacks on the press, not just kicking someone out of the press briefing for a month, all of a sudden it's crickets. They don't care. Why? Why is it? My phone chirping. What's going on, phone? Let me check it. Anything important? Nope. Nope. Okay. So press freedom doesn't matter now. Because, again, remember I was telling the other day, like Mike Benz was talking on Tucker Carlson, where he explains what these institutions mean when they say democracy. Yeah, I am home, thank you. When they say democracy, what they're really talking about isn't me and you voting, right? So you might think, oh, an attack on a democracy. In other words, an attack on people's right to vote, like keeping the front runner for a political party off of the ballot. That might be considered an attack on democracy. But it's not considered an attack on democracy. Why? Because that's not how these institutions define democracy. The way they define democracy is they say there's a bunch of institutions that we care about, like the intel agencies, the FBI, the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the CIA, the NSA, right? And then there's Congress, and then there's corporate America, and there's the social media companies, and there's the media, and there's even leaders of academia. And to them, democracy is getting all of those groups together, them having a voice. And so it's hard work to get all those groups on the same page. This is the direction we want to go. Here's the policy one. That's what they mean by democracy. Those groups having a voice and getting to decide. Not you. You're not in those groups. Of course, the IRS, yeah. You're not in those groups. You're not part of democracy. You're outside the scope of that. So if you, as a person, want to vote against those interests, or even not vote, if you just want to post against information against what those interests have agreed on, then you're an attack on democracy. That's how it goes. Similarly, with science. Remember, Dr. Fauci said, it's not just criticisms of Fauci. When you criticize Fauci, you criticize science. You see, they declare themselves the very, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. It's not institution. They declare themselves the very values that they expect you to care about. So you care about science. You care about democracy. Well, they just changed the definition of that's us. So now if you attack it, you're not attacking us, the institutions. You're attacking us, democracy. You're attacking us, science. You're attacking us, the media. Well, what's media? What's journalism? You're attacking journalism. That's what they say. But they're not journalists. They're propagandists. The real journalists, like Julian Assange or Catherine Herridge or many other people, they're admonished. They're punished. And the so-called journalists say nothing. So in other words, if you're at a Trump rally and CNN has a host and a camera that shows up and you're like, F you, you suck, that's an attack on journalism. But if Catherine Herridge is forced to hand over her sources or Julian Assange spends the rest of his life in prison, that's not an attack on journalism. You see? Journalism, media, all it is what we say it is. The institutions. That's it. Key Lime says, can you ask what I think is the most important issue in this election? Can anyone answer that? Key Lime, for as long as you've listened to me, you can you take a guess, Key Lime, or anyone else? What do you think my most important issue going into this election is? I'll give you a big hint. It's the same issue that I think is the most important every election. Consumption? No, it is not consumption. Yeah, it's corruption. It's simple. Yeah. We see it more and more every day. So why wouldn't it continue? Do you think that it's been limited? No. The border's irrelevant. How can you solve the border if we have a corrupt system that doesn't care about your voices? Which party cares about securing the border? Go ahead, someone tell me. We have two major parties that run the show. Can you tell me which one cares about securing the border? Go ahead. I don't know. I mean, if you've watched any of the Fani Willis thing, it should be self-evident that she should be removed from the case, which would cause a significant delay, I would assume. But at this point, yeah, At this point, does anyone think that actual justice will be served? I don't know. That's right. Neither party cares about the border. Why? Because of corruption. Because at the top level, the two parties are a uniparty. They don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't care that the majority of the people in this country are upset about the border. They don't care at all. They don't care. That's not their priority. They wouldn't care if 90% of people came out tomorrow and said, stop funding money to Ukraine. They'd find ways to fund Ukraine. Guaranteed. They don't care. Because our government, when I say corruption, basically the end result of the corruption is the voice of the people becomes irrelevant and meaningless. It doesn't matter what the people in this country want. Does not matter at all to the leadership in the Republican Party and the leadership in the Democrat Party. Are there individuals within both parties that don't fall into that metric at the national level? Sure. Is the Democratic Party far worse because they have almost complete lockstep in tandem with those institutional ideas? Of course. But if we're being directly on, you think Mitch McConnell cares about the border? Mitch McConnell ran the GOP Congress when Trump in 2016 won, and they had the presidency, they had the House, they had the Senate. They secure the border? Could they even manage to get funding for the wall? Well, Zygmunt, we've known for years that Ukraine actually interfered in our election. Known that for years. They admitted it before the election. I happen to have this handy thing downloaded because it's hard to find this article anymore. So I actually saved it. Ukraine leaders campaign against pro-Putin Trump. Fears over Republicans' victory would have on U.S. policy towards Kiev. August 28th, 2016. This isn't Breitbart. This isn't Fox News, Newsmax, Financial Times. August 2016. The election was in November 2016. 3 months before the election. Let's see what it says. We'll just read a portion of this. For years, Sergei Lyshenko, a top Ukrainian anti-corruption campaigner, worked to expose kleptocracy under former President Yanukovych. Now he's focused on a new perceived Russian threat to Ukraine, Donald Trump. The prospect of Mr. Trump, who has praised Ukraine's archenemy Putin, becoming the leader of the country's biggest ally, has spurred not just Lyshenko, but Kiev's wider political leadership to do something they never would have attempted before. Intervene, however indirectly, in a U.S. election. Wait a minute. Mainstream media before the election admitting that a foreign country is intervening in our elections. And if you remember, there was a Democratic operative by the name Alexander Chalupa who was going to Ukraine and doing exactly what they were accusing Trump's team of doing. She was talking to politicians in Ukraine trying to get dirt on Donald Trump and his team. And what they came up with was what was known as the Black Ledger. And allegedly in this Black Ledger, it showed payments, fraudulent payments from pro-Russian oligarchs in the Yanukovych regime paying Paul Manafort's money. Now, none of the facts in that Black Ledger have ever been proven true, but it was spread and used by U.S. Intel as a reason to investigate Paul Manafort, which they then charged for unrelated crimes. But they're never able to prove, but Ukraine politicians were happy to intervene, happy to interfere in our elections. We're happy to do so. Probability of Rand Paul becoming leader in the Senate, 0. It'll be Cornyn, someone like that. It'll be someone who definitely has the priorities of sending them money to Ukraine as first and foremost. That's the story with these journalists, right? Oh, I wish it was Rand Paul. It won't be. They're not going to allow it to happen. They're already doing Russiagate 2.0. Already. I missed the panel yesterday. I was actually invited on a panel with Wick, which I would have happily done. And it was on whether or not Russia basically owns the Republicans. Okay, that was the topic. I had to turn down the offer because Wick asked me a week or two ago, what's up, legend? He asked me a week or two ago, and I was originally, as you all know, tonight was supposed to be on Tim Pool's show, or actually this morning. So I was like, no, that night before I'll be in West Virginia. Zigzags in the beard. No. It is what it is. So I had to turn it down, but I guess it was like Fabian Liberty and Connor and Dylan Burns was there. I didn't see how it went, but I mean, that's now the talking points. Oh, well, if Speaker Johnson won't bring Ukrainian funding up, it must be because he's being paid off by Russia. After 7 years of that with Donald Trump. Yeah, I'm supposed to, I don't know. It's theoretically the 15th I'm supposed to be doing Tim Pool's show. So we'll see. I haven't heard back yet. They're having trouble. They want me to debate someone, and they're having the people that are willing to debate me, they're having trouble finding a schedule that works. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, he lives in West Virginia. Yeah, Bunker Hill, West Virginia, I believe. Of course, the United States interferes in elections all the time. And listen, it's difficult to prove, right? Imagine, how would you... We have the internet now, right? Imagine how things were before the internet for a minute. Imagine that you're an adult in the 1980s, right? And there's some revolution in some country, right? And there's scuttlebutt that you hear rumors that was the CIA involved in it. How would you know? What's the possibility of you? How would you, average American, or even average anybody, any country in the West, Canadian, Mexican, whatever, how would you find out about those sorts of things? And not just foreign affairs, but also domestic. Alleged involvement in our agencies. How would you find out about it? Seriously, I'm asking. What would if you were to find out about these things, how would that look? What would happen? There would have to be a process. You're at your local, you work you're a welder and you go to work 9 to 5, and then you come home and you have dinner with the wife and kids, and on the weekends you play church softball. And how are you going to find out about potential color revolution? From the enemy? Well, yeah, but where would you hear about it? So the enemy says things. How are you going to hear that? 1980s, who the hell would it be? Gorbachev? I don't, at some point, Gorbachev says something. How are you going to hear what Gorbachev says? You don't have the internet. So what are you going to hear? Okay, travel there and talk. That 99.9% of people aren't going to do that. You wouldn't. That's a good answer. TV, but where on TV? What institution would be relevant in getting information to you about the truth? What would it be? We know what it's supposed to be, right? Who was supposed to tell you that? How would you know? Long wave radio. You're all not saying the obvious answer because you know that the obvious answer is corrupt. But theoretically, how would you know? It'd be journalism. That's how. Some reporter would find the Pentagon Papers, and then they would report on it. And that would cause other reporters to report on it, to which it would crack enough in that you eventually would just... That's how you were supposed to hear it, journalism. Now, there's no secret that our intel agencies had, I would call it improper, but let's call it mutually beneficial relationships with our press. I don't think it was as blatant as it is now, but you have outlets that are friendly to the CIA. And I've watched documentaries about this from former CIA agents. They would ask their friendly outlet, hey, run this story, even if the story wasn't true, because they wanted it to get out there. It would help them. I was going to go on Tim Pool's show. It's been rescheduled tentatively to March 15th. Of course, there'd be propaganda, etc. But you got access as a reporter, as a journalist outlet, to the levers of power, and they got to use you to selectively put out information in the way they thought was beneficial. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And Mike Benz talks about this in his Tucker interview and elsewhere, where one of the people that was the intel agencies, he basically goes, it was in the intel agencies, he basically goes at one point to this, as soon as he's out of the agency, because what happens is a lot of these people in the military and intel, they then move on to other agencies. So he basically, in 2016, I think, goes to some conference and gives a speech, and he's like, what are we going to do if no one listens to the New York Times anymore? If no one listens to the Washington Post? What if, I believe the question he asked was, what if people listen to some small YouTube streamer more than the New York Times? How will we control the narrative? And that's when they started to understand the importance of censorship, of controlling the narrative on social media. Because for years, they were able to do what they wanted clandestinely because the mouthpiece that was most responsible for informing the regular person was basically under their control. Yeah, Mike Benz did talk about that. That New York Times piece, as Mike Benz says, that piece wasn't designed to make you critical of the fact that the CIA was meddling in Ukraine in 2014, 2015, 2016. That was to make you say, oh, there are bases that the CIA has there that need operated or else Russia will win. And the CIA themselves invited the New York Times reporters in. That's absolutely true. They're in hot water? You think so, Keelan? You think they're in hot water? Explain to me what the punishment of the New York Times will be. Will they lose their credibility as the gold standard for media? No. All they'll do is work harder for the mouthpieces of this government and Israeli government elsewhere, and soon all will be forgotten. So now we're back on Russiagate. Oh, it was Russians. They must have bought off. That must be what's going on. If anyone disagrees, they must be Russian. Do I need security? I would hope not. I don't think anyone's going to attack me at Tim Pool's show. But thanks for the offer. Maybe we'll watch some of that Mike Benz stuff. I could probably stream till 11. We'll see. Nothing will happen, man. New York Times won a Pulitzer Prize for their reporting on Russiagate. Literally completely fake. And now we're doing Russiagate 2.0. There's no consequence. No one stepped back and was like, wait a minute. How did you get this story wrong for 3 years? Weren't you independently verifying the things you were being told? And it's not just that. Like, here's the malfeasance of the media, right? It's not just that they got the story wrong. It's that they continually promoted people with supposed knowledge of the story that were telling them that they had proof of things that ended up being a lie. For example, how many journalists, like, say, Jake Tapper, had Adam Schiff come on his show repeatedly and say, I've seen the evidence. I've seen the evidence that Donald Trump colluded with these Russians and did all this bad. And it didn't exist. It was a lie. You could say, okay, Jake Tapper got had. But then Jake Tapper would say, we're never going to have Adam Schiff on. We're going to make sure anytime Adam Schiff's in a news story, we say, this gentleman lied to us over and over. We no longer trust him as a source. No, none of that happened. I used to party in Morgantown quite frequently, easy breezy. So I'm familiar with the area. I love West Virginia. As a rural Pennsylvanian, we're basically West Virginia North. It's my people. And that nothing's changed with me. I mean, does anyone remember, when was this? 2017, 2018, maybe even later than that. Remember there was like editorial changes at the New York Times, and they came out and were like, listen, maybe we've had too much bias against Donald Trump and it's clouded our objectivity. So going forward, remember that? They had this big mea culpa. Did they change anything? No, of course not. Remember when the entire news division, the reporting division of the New York Times threatened to quit unless they removed Tom Cotton's op-ed suggesting the National Guard be deployed to stop rioters during the George Floyd riots? I remember. And then they pulled that op-ed. And then remember when all of those same journalists at the New York Times cheered the National Guard being utilized after January 6th? I remember. Well, yeah, PA leaders suck. That's right, man, Ned. It will all come back. So I wanted to talk briefly because, thank you, King Clips. I try. King Clips 84. Were you born in 84? It's the same year I was born. July 4th, 84. Great year to be born. Hulk Hogan was kicking ass. Both the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Pittsburgh Steelers I'm a fan of were embroiled in drug controversies, coke and booze, and both sucked. Bubby Brister would become our quarterback. 86, yeah. I'm not the only old man here. Turning 40 this year, King Clips, both of us. Damn. My mom, I mentioned to my mom, I was like, yeah, I feel like I need glasses. I'm getting, like, reading now, smaller font. It's becoming very difficult for me. And my mom has the weirdest sense of humor. She's like, yeah, you know what our friend Rob used to say, you start to lose your vision at 40. I'm like, thanks, Mom. You're 8. Oh, you were born in 85. Yeah. There's a narrative that the over-the-top negative coverage of Trump in 2016 gave him more of a spotlight and ultimately helped him win the election. Do you agree with that narrative? Do you think it will help him this time as well? I don't necessarily agree with that narrative. I think that certainly influenced some people, but those people were already probably predisposed to not vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, I guess you could say maybe it made them more passionate to get out and vote. Maybe some of them, if you were forced to vote, would have voted for Trump, but wouldn't have went out election day until they saw the attacks against Trump. So it could be true. I think 2016, what the more accurate story is this, that the media's attention of Donald Trump in the primaries helped him win the primary. And then they completely turned their coverage once Trump won the primary, completely negative in hopes of sabotaging him for Hillary Clinton, because the media was basically working at the behest of Hillary Clinton, and she wanted to face Trump. She was very clear that Donald Trump was an opponent she thought she would easily beat. Yeah, King, I hear you, man. Yeah, they thought they'd beat Trump easily. The same thing this time, by the way. They wanted to face Trump again. And I'll be honest with you, they will have an easier time beating Trump than they would have Ron DeSantis. It's true. But we'll see. Maybe they underestimated Trump again and they'll lose. I still think the chances of Trump winning are very low. Could it matter this time, the overwhelming media coverage? I don't think it'll be the media coverage that matters as much as the court cases. I think there are people that see these court cases and they're like, this is too much, that you have to draw a line in the sand right now. If they're allowed to do this to Trump, they'll certainly do it. Not to every Republican. Don't get it twisted. It's not a Democrat-Republican thing. They'll do it to anyone that comes into power in either party that they view as a threat to sort of the status quo. So if you had someone in the Democratic Party, like, let's say Biden wins, hypothetically, and then we have a Democratic primary in 2028, and let's say that RFK Jr. would be looking to win that primary, they'll do the same stuff to RFK Jr. No doubt in my mind. He'll be smeared as Russian or racist or homophobe or whatever it takes. There'll be court cases against him. There'll be accusations of sexual impropriety. The playbook will not change until it doesn't work. And why would it? I still don't think Biden will be the nominee, to be honest with you. But people are going to be pissed either way because it's now, we've become more and more bifurcated that it's each subsequent national election is going to make people more and more mad on either side. If Trump wins, the left is going to go insane. They won't want to certify the election. They'll say it was stolen. Everything they've accused Trump and Trump supporters of for 4 years, they'll do, because that's what they did from 2016 to 2020. There'll be riots in the street, just like there was in 2016. It's just that the institutions will cover for them. They'll act like it wasn't a big deal. If Biden wins, there will be pissed off Trump supporters, and there will be Trump supporters that do something stupid. There will. It won't be near as big as the riots you would see if Trump wins, but it'll be blown up even bigger. They'll say that that's a threat to democracy, et cetera, et cetera. What's up, Bandit? So I think there are people, like I said in that RFK situation, that aren't hardcore Trump supporters. They might not even like Trump, but they're starting to realize just how the institutions and what the face of it at this point, the Democratic Party, how far they're willing to go. They're willing to lock up journalists. They're willing to just throw $100 million fines to bankrupt their opponents. They're willing to try to keep their opponents off the ballots. Yeah, I don't think Biden will be the primary candidate. How do you call in? Through Discord. What do you want to talk about? Because I didn't plan to take call-ins tonight. But you tell me what you want to talk about. Maybe I'll make an exception. You could always take an impromptu call. Win 26 on it. I don't bet, really. Maybe can you put $5 on it? I think it's a useless prediction because whatever outcome, the alternative becomes incomparable. I disagree. I think my predictions will be... Darth, you have to tell me what you want to talk about, man. Maybe there's a delay on your end, or woman, whatever. Darth's not a name that just applied to male Sith, right? Was there a female version of Darth, or I haven't watched the new movies, so I don't know. The last Darth I knew was Sidious, I think. Darth, if you could hear me, man, let me know what you want to talk about, because problem is, if we have some sort of idea, then I'll be able to talk, but so I'm just going to keep moving on. If Trump will win. Boring, but okay. We'll do it real quick. And other stuff that I wanted to get on to, but sure, why not? What's up, Darth? Can you hear me?
Hey, what's up?
Not much.
So I'll try and make it faster, not to waste your time.
No.
So you were talking about 2016 and how Hillary Clinton wanted to face Trump on purpose.
Uh-huh.
Did you feel like this time around, especially with the primary, I personally felt like there was no reason to put Trump forward. I mean, I was a DeSantis guy because it seemed like Trump already lost once. Of course, he was going to lose again. And I understand that there was a lot of, let's just say, sketchy stuff. But I mean, what have we done to fix what happened last time to think that he's going to win this time?
Nothing.
What do you think?
Nothing. I don't think he'll win. I think I would put it this way, right? I would have said that Trump has less than a 5% chance of winning. DeSantis would have an 8% chance to win. Because the problem is the very things that would keep Trump from winning, the most important things would keep DeSantis or Vivek, anyone that was a serious contender in the Republican primary other than Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley would have probably won convincingly, would have been my guess. Because here's what happens. It's a uniparty system. It really is. The top levels don't care. Mitch McConnell, the truth of the matter is your Paul Ryans, your Mitch McConnells, your John McCain's, your Jeff Flakes, all of them wanted Hillary Clinton to win. And what was going on was you could only keep in sort of people's angst and anger about the political system for so long. You would need a pressure release valve, right? And so the pressure release valve they hoped in 2015, 2016 was give the people their vote on Brexit, and then they'll lose because we'll rig the game, we'll control the media coverage, etc., and give the people their release valve on, now you got a candidate that's outside. You got Donald Trump, right? They would have never accepted Trump versus Bernie. It would have never happened. And so the establishment Republicans knew what the game was. They are establishment more than they're Republican. And so therefore Hillary's establishment, that's who they wanted to win. And so everyone thought, no problem, Hillary will win this easily. And then we've given the populace their outlet. They had Bernie, who lost in the primary on the left. They had Trump, who loses the general on the right. And then we'll get back to business as usual. We'll adapt.
So by extension, do you think it comes down to money then? Is that what you're sort of like alluding to?
No. I mean, money is certainly part of it, but it's more than that.
Well, I mean, there's no reason for them to do it other than that, right? I mean, unless you just mean from a power perspective.
Of course. Money is... Why is money important? Why
because
would
of the power, exactly.
Right, exactly. So it's like, money is...
So in a way it does... Yeah.
I mean, so for me, it's like, why are lobbyists willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, even if they don't get that much in return? Because inevitably, it helps them get access to the levers of power, which might end up making them more money in the long run, but it's more about the power. The money's just an extension to the power. So, yeah. I mean,
so how much of this do you think is the intelligence of these elites versus, like, because sometimes you see the stuff they're doing and you go, okay, it's so freaking crazy that it's either intentional or they are that stupid. And I keep hearing on both sides, oh, they're really stupid or they're really smart. The truth's probably somewhere in the middle, yes?
Yeah, I think that there are people, there's certainly intelligent people within them, but I think that it's less than stupidity and it's more complacency. I think that's the problem. It's when you never have, like, let me try to use an analogy that maybe will make sense to the audience, right? Did you ever see like a celebrity that starts to talk about something outside the scope of like working on movies and stuff, and they're a total idiot? Like, just, you're like, why would you even
super
open your mouth?
cringe.
Right. How does that happen? Because these people, like, it's like the show Entourage or something, where these people have yes men around them 24/7. You're the best. You're the greatest. You're the smartest. Right? And so you believe that. And you've never had anyone challenge you. And so then when you go out and you say something and someone pushes back, you look like a total buffoon because you're so used to everything going your way. I think that's largely what's going on, and particularly.
Well, would you say that's more like a self-identity thing or a self-protection?
I don't understand the question.
Like, well, what I mean by that is like when people come out and they speak about something that, you know, like you said, seemingly they have nothing to do with, are they doing it in a way that where it's like, okay, I'm going to say this because this will keep me safe among my peers? Or is it like, well, I identify as XYZ, so I'm just going to say the common line that those people say?
It's both. I don't think it's as much protect. I think the people that are worried about being protected don't really go out of their way too much. They might say something in passing, but what you see from a lot of these people isn't just, to me, it's not just, oh, I don't really believe this, but I need my in-group to believe I do, so I'm going to say some token thing. I think most of these people actually believe what they're saying. They don't know why. They're just basically indoctrinated within it. Everyone they know.
But what they're saying doesn't make any sense.
Right, but that's okay.
How could they believe it?
Like, why is it, like, if you look into these movements, right, like, you could find a rich history of why it is they say things that don't make sense, but they believe it. For example, do you ever notice all these left-wing groups, they just chant stuff? No justice, no peace. What does that mean? Can you explain? What are you talking about in this specific context? And most of them can't. Oftentimes when you see, and this happens somewhat on the right, but definitely you see it a lot in the left, like you'll see a college protest or something, and they're just chanting slogans, and you sit down and you talk to them, and you're like, well, what do you mean by that? And they have no clue, but they believe it. It doesn't matter that it doesn't make sense. Like, my body, my choice. Do you think they believed my body, my choice? Absolutely. They believe that. They believe that pro-life people are trying to enslave women and control their bodies. They absolutely believe that. And you're like, oh, so the underlying principle that you have is that of bodily autonomy. That with your body, the government shouldn't have the right to tell you what to do with your body. Absolutely, they'll say. And you'll go, okay, how about vaccines? And they're like, oh, well, you're a danger to everyone, so the government has the right to tell you to be vaccinated. But how doesn't that go through your central belief, opposite of your central belief of bodily autonomy?
That's where I think it kind kind of becomes an identity thing, because like you'll hear one crazy issue that somebody spouts off about, and you can instantly tell where they stand on all the rest of the issues because they view that party or that political belief as their identity. Like I hear all the time, like I'm a Bengals fan, for example, and you always hear within those circles that Joe Burrow is the best quarterback. Right. Well, we all know that Joe Burrow is a good quarterback. He's not the best quarterback, but because of that identity, they all just follow along those lines.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a lot. Like when you discuss identity, there are people that are self-preservation, but I don't know if it's just identity. That's certainly part of it. The idea that like your in-preference group is right, and the way it manifests itself is they believe they are moral and you are immoral. They believe they're the good guys and you're evil. Like it really comes down to.
So they pick all the things that they believe are on the moral side, even though they don't. I don't know if they necessarily believe them. They just want to be a part of that team.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
But to them, they believe it because they believe they're virtuous, right? So I was explaining this. I was talking to my brother today about this. It was like, how can it be that many of these people I debate over and over now, right? And it's not just people I'm debating. This is people in the mainstream Democratic line of thinking, whether it be politicians, media people, or right down to just low-level streamers like me. How can it be that so many of them adapt this personality? We have no idea what the intent of James Comey or Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Barack Obama or name any other person that they would have an affinity for. We can't speak to their intent because we can't read their mind. But with Donald Trump, we know his intent. We could read his mind. And so therefore, if Donald Trump says, I want you to go march peacefully, they say, aha, that really means go march violently, right? But if a Democrat says something, they'll say, actually, no, I know what they really mean is X. You know, the best example I could give is...
They give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, it's not just the benefit of the doubt. It's far more than that. So, for example, again...
Well, what I mean is because they're on my side, they're good people, so I give them the benefit of the doubt because they must have meant X, Y, Z good thing, and Trump must have meant something evil. That's
right. So they start off with the assumption Trump evil, Democrat guy good.
Exactly.
And so, like, one person I debate a lot, his name's Pisco, right? Pisco would say, when Trump says go be peaceful, he clearly means go be violent, right? Okay.
Was he the lawyer guy?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
He's a lawyer. So then when it comes to like Jamal Bowman, the Democrat that pulled the fire alarm, right? He says, when Jamal Bowman said to law enforcement, I didn't intend for the fire alarm to go off, what he really meant was, I did intend for the fire alarm to go off. Exactly. Right? And like, you look at that objectively, you stay out and you're like, so wait a minute. So with Trump, you know that his words mean convenient. They literally mean the opposite of what he said because it's convenient for you to paint your picture of Trump should be disqualified, Trump should be arrested, etc. And then with the Democrat, you know again that his words mean the opposite of what he actually said because he's a good guy and he must be telling the truth and it fits my narrative. And ultimately, the question becomes, do they know they're lying or because of, however you want to put it, their identity or their in-group preference or whatever, have they convinced themselves that they're not lying, that they're being honest? And I think a lot of it's that. A lot of it's like what you would call cognitive dissonance. How can you simultaneously believe something that's true and not true? And like if you read, like it's really amazing. Everyone remembers the book 1984 and the idea of doublespeak. But there's a part in the book where it's really amazing when it explains what doublespeak actually means. It means both believing and disbelieving at the exact same time, right? Like, so it's not just like, oh, I believe war is peace. It's that I believe war is war and war is peace. And I understand there's a contradiction and totally accept it and say that that contradiction doesn't disprove anything. I believe it wholeheartedly. I'll defend it religiously. And that's what we're dealing with. It doesn't matter, right? And so right down to it. So you come down, and it's not, now you might say, who gives a shit? Some random Twitter guy, some random streamer. But that's what these people believe at the highest levels. They believe that they're moral, that they're righteous, that they're more intelligent. And so therefore the ends always justify the means. Now, I think at the top levels, I don't think there's as much cognitive dissonance. I believe they know that there's a double standard and they just don't give a shit because they should be in power because they deserve it or because they know best or whatever, right? But the followers, the people at the lower level, they start to convince themselves that this shit's true, and they don't have a problem with it, and they just repeat
and to tie this
slogans.
Back to the election, I get where you're going with this. The question is that like what, Like, I was convinced that Trump was going to lose. In the last like 3 weeks, I'm starting to think that he might be able to pull this off. I'm talking to people, obviously this is anecdotal, but I'm talking to people that were straight up social justice warriors that were like as far left as you could go, that are now telling me like, my life sucks under Biden. I'm voting for Trump. And as much as I don't like Trump, I like me more, and Trump is better for me. Are you noticing anything like that?
Yeah, I see that. I see that with people that were either moderate and chose not to vote. I'm in rural Pennsylvania, so most of the people I know are in the county
I'm in
I
Northeast
live.
Ohio.
Yeah, okay, right. So I'm an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh.
Similar, yeah.
Pittsburgh. Yeah. So similar. You know, the truth is most people are apathetic. So in my area, going back years since 2000, most people would probably vote Republican, and they would probably have chosen the more outside the mainstream vein of Republican. Like most of them, if you could explain positions, would have been Ron Paul people probably, or things like that. The problem is they just didn't vote. They didn't care. The big change I saw for people was COVID. I think COVID, when it literally shut down their businesses, that they were like, holy shit, politics matters. It's like, right. You know, so I saw people get involved at that level. But
well, that's actually what I always used to tell my friends is you say you don't care about politics until one day you're wearing a red hat and you get yanked out of your car. Then all of a sudden politics matter. Then it's a big deal.
Right. And that's totally true. So, yeah, I see a little of that. But here's the problem. Here's what people are underestimating. Like, let me ask you, do you think that they tried to interfere in the 2016 and 2020 elections, sort of the establishment?
I think everybody tries to interfere every election. Right. So yes, they're
not going to give up. Like, and if they believe the internal polling and they think Biden's going to lose, like they're going to pull out all of the stops. Would your friends feel the same way if there's a video released of Trump saying the N-word, or of him making homophobic slurs? Or of him saying disgusting things.
The N-word is a bit of an extreme. Almost anything other than that, I think that we live in a society where people are so selfish and so focused inward that all they care about is what's going to help me next. And Biden has just done so poorly that for the first time ever, like it's opened wide up for Trump. And I thought that door was shut after what happened in 2020. Well, but it looks open again.
Okay, but what I'm saying is they're going to pull out all the stops, and we're so far away. We're so far away from the general election. We'll see if the most emboldened propaganda in the history of our country, right? Yeah. In a full court press, who is going to be more desperate now than they were in 2020 because they realize that people are like, holy shit, this looks really bad. So
okay, but do you think people care more about being a good person or care more about what they get out of it? Like at this day and age, the way people are now.
Both. Well, let's take the N-word example. Do you think that
would? But if you had to go one way or the other, like which way are you leaning?
Well, but it's hard to say one. Like it's hard to mean what you mean by good person. What's the level of it? Like for example, let's say that.
Well, what they want to believe they're a good person.
Let me finish here, right? Like so, let's say you're.
Well, I was wanting to clarify the question. You made it sound like you didn't understand what I was saying. I was just trying to clarify.
Okay, let's say that you objectively say, of course, Donald Trump would be better for my pocketbook. His policies would be better on 98% of issues. I vote for Trump. But then simultaneously, you also believe he's a rapist. You voting for Trump?
Right.
So it's hard to say, well, people don't care about doing good. They care more about their personal interest. Well, it depends on the level of doing good, right? That's the problem. How is he smeared? And it's not going to be as simple. You also assume then in that world that, yes, people are saying how bad things are under Biden. There is a lot of truth to that. But you assume that they'll continue to think Trump would be more favorable in those issues after 10 months of a constant drumbeat that Trump was worse than all of this shit. So they're not just going to smear him with allegations. They're also going to smear him by saying his policies would do X. His policies would, and you're going to see people from the Federal Reserve that come out and say, oh, Biden's doing wonderful. And you're going to see all these economists that are pushing. And the question is, with that full court press and the control of 95% of our political discourse, is that enough to break through people that are like seeing the reality that Biden's economy sucks, Biden's border sucks, Biden's foreign policy sucks? I don't know. This is my guess. This is what I'm getting to, right? I would say that these people are reading the tea leaves. They're looking at the polling. They're looking at whatever scandals and strategy they have and, October surprises that they have. They're looking at how much ballot harvesting they could do. They're looking at all these things and they're saying, are we comfortable that Joe Biden wins? And if they're not, Joe Biden will not be the nominee. He won't be.
Yeah.
They'll
And I'll
replace
just
him
make
with
one
someone
last
more youthful.
point,
And
'cause
then, and let me
I know
just
I've
say
been
this.
taking up a bunch of your time.
Okay, go ahead. You make the last point.
I was just going to say, I think that in 2016, everybody thought, like all of the people that were voting that were on Hillary's side didn't feel galvanized to come out because Trump was going to lose by so much. And so right now, with everybody saying, well, Trump's beating Biden, Trump's going to win this, Trump's going to win this. Do you think they're trying to play the reverse effect because they saw that happen in 2016? So they're trying to play it now where, okay, well, we'll just say Trump's winning to make sure people come out and vote.
There might be some of that. I don't know how much stock I put into that, though. I think what you're more likely to see is that the polls are somewhat accurate. I think they're directionally accurate because the Democrats haven't really ramped up what their ultimate attacks on Trump will be, and people are feeling the pain of all of these disastrous Biden decisions. So I think that's largely what's going on with the polls. But I also think the polls worded things in a way that were favorable to Trump so far because they really wanted Trump to win the primary because they didn't want to face DeSantis. They didn't want to. That would be harder for them. And so I think that what you'll see is as we get closer to the general, those polls are going to start to tighten and then ultimately show Biden winning, right? And because one of the things about the pollsters, I think they're so freaking fake. I think what you ultimately see is there's always a tightening of the race at the end, right? Because they're pushing a narrative, and then they'll tighten the race. And then, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong about this, no matter how the election goes, it's not going to be a landslide. No one's winning 60% of the votes. It's going to be 51-49, 52-48. You know what I mean? It's going to be within 3 points probably at the national level.
Yeah, I think the people saying Trump's going to win by a landslide,
it's nonsense.
That's misguided.
It's absolute. People said that shit in 2020. It's absolute nonsense. Not going to happen. If Trump wins, it'll be by the skin of his teeth, right? But the point is, so if you know that, and you know it's going to be a close election, and you're a pollster, as long as your final polls are saying it's going to be close, but we think X will win, it doesn't matter if X loses because you'll still say, well, we were within the margin, right? The polls, still trust the polls. So, ultimately, I don't put much faith in it. I think that polls are useful to look at how they're moving directionally. So if the polls show one guy's up 20% and then 25 and then 30 and then 40, you might say, oh, maybe momentum's going that way. But I don't believe that means they're winning by 40%. I just don't. And so, I don't, maybe I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I believe the people pushing the polls have an incentive to say that Trump was kicking ass because it helps them if he wins the primary, or it helps the Democrats if he wins the primary. So that's my feeling. I think that the people that, it's a huge mistake. And if you followed me back in 2020, people could believe me or not. You go back, my live shows, many of them are still up. You could see me constantly excoriating Trump supporters because I had person after person in my chat and on my channel that was saying, Trump's going to win 48 states. And I'm like, you're nuts. And Trump's going to lose because of your overconfidence. You're making the exact same mistake that Hillary's team made in 2016. If Trump's going to win, it's going to require every vote because the corruption that's going to come his way, the monolithic, uniparty that's going to put all amounts of propaganda and energy through every one of their agencies. And what did we see? We saw the 51 former intel agencies interfere in the election, or agents interfere in the election. We saw all sorts of scandals and stuff that were put out about Trump that ended up not being true. So, for God's sakes, they were willing to allow the economy and the country to burn through riots and lockdowns simultaneously because it meant that much to get Trump out of power. And Trump certainly made, I don't even know if mistakes is the word, as bad as it was. Like, his lip service of lockdowns is still one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Yes.
Like, not just because it's antithetical to what this country's about and freedom of liberty, but even more important, not more importantly to me, but more importantly for Trump, strategically, he couldn't see that this was going to cost him the 2020 election. The only reason people were gung-ho about Trump going into 2020 was economy's doing good. I don't like the guy. I think he's a big mouth, said people, but hey, my pocketbook's looking good, so I could stomach him for another 4 years. But if the economy's not doing good, then what did Trump have? So Trump took the one decision to ensure that his best issue became a bad issue for him. And so I'm not shocked at all that
he's still touting it.
Yeah,
it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, and and it's one of those things. My first pick was Vivek. and then followed by Ron DeSantis, and Trump was a distant third to win the primary. I will not vote for Nikki Haley if she's presidential candidate or vice president, but those three I could accept. So I'm all in on trying to help Trump. But if you followed my channel, I was a DeSantis and Vivek person. That's who I wanted to win. I thought Trump should have dropped out and been sort of a kingmaker. I thought he should have dropped out and picked someone to endorse, like DeSantis would have probably been the best bet early. Dropped out, endorsed DeSantis, and said, I'm going to go around campaigning for DeSantis, and I'll be the loudmouth asshole so DeSantis could be the policy wonk. Right? I'll go out there and I'll insult Joe Biden and I'll insult all these people and I'll fight these legal battles. And then Ron DeSantis could be the guy that's like, look, I think what they're doing to Trump legally is terrible, but I'm here to talk about the policy disasters.
You're almost reasonable to a fault. Like what you're saying is so based and reasonable that it's like the world is more hot takey. Like what you're saying is just the truth. It's dead on accurate. I've been saying this shit. Like I haven't followed you for a long time, but everything you're saying is exactly what I was saying, and it's just the truth. It's just not hot takey enough to get like all this big attention.
And the problem is like people want to like deify people. So like Trump supporters, which again, I'm a Trump supporter. I am.
And there is a part of it that's a cult. There is.
Well, yeah, there certainly is. But I'm not talking about those people. I guess I am when I say deify. But I would call myself a Trump supporter. The problem is there's so many people that even aren't a cult that put the personal characteristics and morals of a person in this sort of fantasy way. The truth of the matter is the things that make Trump awesome are also the things that hinder him. So you can say what you want. I will never achieve what Donald Trump did. He beat one of the biggest propaganda machines in one of the biggest underdog political victories in history, winning in 2016, which I did not think was possible. I was absolutely wrong about that prediction. I was shocked that he won because I thought the corruption was so deep. And it blew me away. It really did. And nothing could take that away from him. And why did he do that? Because he was talking about the right issues and because he had a charismatic personality that resonated with people that were pissed off at that time. And that same personality is
the celebrity is a factor too.
Oh yes, absolutely. That same
we finally got one on the right. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, a celebrity is actually on our side finally.
Yeah, and so that same characteristic though hinders him. Where it's like, if he had some humility, right, and thought this through, it's like, Trump, you will go down as one of the most important people in the country's history if you don't run, right? If you run and you win, you might still go down as that. But if you run and you lose, your legacy's not going to be anywhere near it would have been if you back off and say, I'm going to be kingmaker. I'm going to pick the person that will succeed me for 8 years and is going to go further than I did to weed out this corruption, and I'll be able to do so. Trump would still have been able to do the thing that he loves best. I mean, does anyone disagree with me in the audience? Trump, I don't know how much Trump liked the day-to-day of being a president. What Trump loves is going out in front of the people. Trump loves a crowd of 40,000 chanting his name while he's just riffing. Fuck this person, screw the media, blah, blah, blah. He could have did that every day.
Even I do think a part of it's legacy, though. Like, I think that there's a part of him where, because if he gets reelected this time, he can look back and see, I told you it was bullshit. It was bullshit, and now we proved it.
Well, he could have done that had DeSantis won, too. And I think if he was looking at it, for me, it was evident. If Trump endorsed DeSantis, a DeSantis ticket had a better chance of winning the 2024 election than a Trump ticket. Now, did a DeSantis ticket the way it worked out? Probably not, because unfortunately what was likely to happen, a lot of Trump people would have said, screw that, I'm not voting for DeSantis if he won the primary. So DeSantis would have had a difficult time. But if it was a DeSantis fully endorsed by Donald Trump from the outside, I think that ticket's hard to beat. I really do. And I think that, one of the things that people say DeSantis lacks is charisma. I sort of disagree. I don't think he has the charisma of Trump, but I think when you listen to DeSantis when he's not being handled by his handlers and he's just riffing on like reporters and stuff, like look at DeSantis's Twitter feed. Look at DeSantis's Twitter feed post him dropping out of the election. He's on fire. He's back to the DeSantis. Like it was like he reserved himself. I thought his campaign was ran very poorly. Unleash the man. Let him go off. When he's not insulting reporters like Trump being like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. He's insulting them like, let me break down what you said and how stupid it is step by step. And I love that. I love those clips of DeSantis in Florida, like when the press comes at him just being like, no, you listen to me. That's the DeSantis I wanted, right? And I felt like if he could have brought more of that. Now, the truth is, as bad as I think his campaign was ran, I don't think he had a chance no matter what. I mean, Trump's the de facto incumbent. He was always.
But you're right, though. If Trump was behind him, he could have been unleashed and be the DeSantis that we love.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. And Trump could have had DeSantis' ear and been like, nah, man, don't let them tell you to be reserved. You go out and do what got you here. You know, and I think a lot of people, when it comes to the national level politics, they lose sight of that. They lose sight of what made people love them. And for me, I think DeSantis was trying to thread this needle where he was like, how
Which was
can
impossible to thread.
Right. I want to still get the Trump people to support me and like me. And I believe I could be wrong because you never know what's in someone's heart or mind. I think DeSantis is a populist in the way that I like populism. I think he is someone who's interested in fighting corruption. But I think he also wanted to assuage the fears of the old guard establishment Republicans, right? Your Mitch McConnells, your Paul Ryans. And that's
he needed money, so he had to go with them slightly.
That's exactly right. So to thread that needle is very difficult because how do you continue to convince Trump supporters who hate the sort of Paul Ryans that like, oh yeah, I'm on your side, but also convince the Paul Ryan people that hate Trump, no, but don't worry, I'm not going to be unhinged. I'm not going to be like Trump.
And if Trump wasn't running, you have to think at bare minimum 90% of Trump's base is going to be all over DeSantis.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so for me, it was inevitable that DeSantis would not win the primary when Trump decided to be in it. I think it would have been better for Trump's legacy and for the agenda that Trump probably wants, including clearing his name, including looking at corruption in the 2020 election, had he dropped out and endorsed DeSantis. I think, or not dropped out, not even ran. To me, that would have been, and this is what people don't get about me. When I talk about, for me, it's not about Trump. Like some guy the other night was saying I'm a Trump worshiper. I criticize Trump all the time. I wasn't pulling for him in the primary. I don't care if Trump goes to prison. It doesn't bother me as an individual. Like I have a family. I do this as a hobby. My life will proceed if Trump goes to prison, right? It's not going to personally affect me.
You don't have to agree with everything about Trump just to say he's better than Biden. That's all
true.
Anyone's saying.
Right. But the reason that I talk about Trump going to prison or the cases and things like that is because any one politician is only there for a finite amount of time. But these institutions, if they are corrupted to the point where it could be like, well, we're just going to weaponize to go after anyone we truly think would be a threat to the institutions, that's not recoverable. That's something that our country
was appealing.
Right. That's why our country won't be able to survive. Our country could survive 4 more years of Biden, probably. We'll see. It could survive any individual politician, but it can't survive like a law enforcement system that's like, no, but if you ever disagree with us, we'll bury you. We can't survive that because that means they run the country and what we think. And that's what I truly believe is going on. So that's what I fight against. And that comes off to so many left-wingers and even DeSantis supporters is like, oh, so you're just a Trump ass kisser. You just agree with everything Trump says. No, that couldn't be further from the truth. I criticized. And here's one of the things I'll say to DeSantis supporters out there, right? Again, of which I was one. Where were you in 2020 when Trump was screwing up? Were you publicly excoriating? Like, I was volunteering for Trump's campaign and was offered a job by them. Low-level job, but still running my county for Trump's team. And I turned it down because they said I had to stop my social media presence. And I said, no, I'm not willing to do that. And then 3 days later, Trump came out and started endorsing lockdowns. And so I'm on my channel 3 days later just blasting Trump. And I'm like, it would have been awkward if I took this job. And I'm getting paid by Trump's team and I'm out here just blasting. But that's how I honestly felt. And so many of the people that were big DeSantis supporters, I didn't hear their voices. I was begging. I thought Trump was I talk about this all the time. Trump was unique in that he's not an ideologue. Like, I would prefer what I think DeSantis is, which, and again, I could be wrong, but to me, DeSantis is more of a policy wonk, and he has a principled reasons for the things he advocates for. So he is someone who wants small government. He wants government not to be corrupt, not interfering in certain ways. He wants to end DEI. He does all that because he's principled. I don't think that's who Trump is. Trump's a dude that just wants
Trump punches back. Like I view it like if Trump gets attacked, he's going to punch back. But DeSantis, and this is the reason I supported DeSantis over everybody else, is nobody is a fucking gut punch to the left like DeSantis is. Well, he takes the fight to them.
Well, right, but and I don't disagree broadly on that, but what I'm saying is this: why is DeSantis doing that? Because DeSantis is like, I have these core political and religious or cultural beliefs, and I feel that the opposition is against those beliefs, so they are my opposition. Trump's like, I don't really have those beliefs. Basically, I'm just someone who gets people in a room and says, I'll get a smart guy on this guy and a smart guy on that side. I'll hash it out, and then I'll make a decision. But what Trump is petty, and he wants to be liked. He's sort of an ego person. And so what happened is Trump ends up being good largely because the people he's punching back at are the exact people that need punched. The media, the FBI, the Democrats, the intel agencies, the institutions, the deep state, academia.
I just think we need to take the fight to them more often
I agree.
instead of just
I don't
returning
think Trump,
fire.
I don't think Trump did near enough. But what I'm saying is that's certainly that's not as good as sharing my core political cultural beliefs. However, the one good side of having a president like that is they're willing to listen. They're willing to change their mind. If you're not staunchly like a Second Amendment guy and you come out and you're like, yeah, ban bump stocks like Trump did, his fans and his voters could be like, no, that's wrong. And he'll be like, oh, okay, never mind. And to me, that was a unique, I don't know many politicians like that. And again, it's both a strong suit and a negative suit. But the way you take advantage of that is if Trump's going awry, if he starts doing something you don't like embracing lockdowns, his supporters come together and say no. But instead, you know what happened? When I was doing shows talking about this, I had people from QAnon coming onto my show saying, shut up, trust the plan. Oh, great. So now there aren't the very people that should have been steering Trump in the right direction, like, rural, constitutional conservatives that speak out about this stuff, they were telling me, hey man, 15 days to slow the spread. Okay. How'd that work out for you? And that's one of the things that frustrates me because now I see a lot of those people, they're like, screw Trump, he embraced lockdowns. Right, so did you. Where were you? Right? And you're right. Maybe you say, okay, I was wrong at first and now I've changed and Trump really skirting the issue or he's not accepting blame. That's all true. But still, it frustrates me to see people because I feel like, man, if you had your voice and we all had that voice in March of 2020, maybe things look way different now.
Well, and Trump supporters did speak out against the vaccine. And to Trump's credit, even though I think that him touting Operation Warp Speed is a silly political move, even with that, I do think that like where he listened to his supporters, because most of Trump's supporters were anti-vax. And so you have all of them screaming and him going, hey, look, you don't have to get it. I think you should get it, but by no means do I think you have to get it. And this is ridiculous. So I think that is sort of what you mean about the way he's willing to adjust?
Yeah, that's right. And he was more fluent on that or flexible on that than he was like embracing lockdown. He just pretends he didn't embrace lockdown. He did. He certainly did. And he still he said ludicrous stuff in this primary season. Like he said that, Cuomo did better in New York than DeSantis with COVID. That's ludicrous. That's absolutely ludicrous. And like you're looking at it and it's like, how does that inspire confidence in you going forward if we have another COVID situation that you're not going to embrace lockdowns? Because if you're looking at New York and saying it did better in Florida, then to me that means you're more likely to go with New York's ideas than Florida's if it happens again, which I can't accept. I can't, and so but I feel like if enough people were pushing back on Trump at the time, that things would, and for me, I'm a single issue voter, so my issue is corruption. I was screaming to the heavens that Bill Barr was covering up this corruption, was going to sabotage Trump. I was doing episode after episode based on publicly available information of crimes of people like Jim Comey and Andy McCabe. Why aren't we charging these people? How many people know this? Do you know that a grand jury recommended charges against Jim Comey? They did. And Bill Barr declined to prosecute. Meanwhile, they went ahead and prosecuted Roger Stone. They prosecuted Mike Flynn, but not Jim Comey. Why? Yeah, and like I'm screaming my head off about this, but I can't get anyone on board. Instead, most people didn't even know the minutia of that, which you can't blame that. But the people that did, probably half of them were telling me, trust the plan. Bill Barr's a white hat. You'll see. They still do it. I still go on this website above Top Secret like once every 6 months and fuck with them. I'm like, hey man, when's the plan what's the date for the plan this year? Right? Like anything. Like, and I used to joke, I was like, they could be walking Trump to the gallows. And they could walk these Q people to the gallows right beside them and be putting the noose around their neck and they'd be like, we got him where we want him now. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, well, it's okay to admit he's not perfect. Like, he made mistakes. This idea that he's like some omniscient dude that planned everything out in 4D chess, it's nonsense. In fact, he's the opposite of that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's a gut feeling type guy. But everyone wanted to make it seem like, oh, no, this is all planned out, and he's got spies everywhere. He's just letting them be corrupt, and then he's going to drop the hammer at the last minute, and then he'll win the 2020 election. No. And let me really blackpill people. I don't think Trump has much of a chance to win. If Trump wins, I don't think he'll do much against the corruption again. I think he'll say
people saying that he's going to come back with retribution is crazy.
Yeah. He'll say, pardon me, pardon my family. That's what he'll do. And then he'll be like,
it's about
legacy. And nothing will be done. And he'll go on. Now, it's still going to look worlds better than a Biden president.
Than Biden.
Of course, right? Yeah. But, I mean, we could very well be in World War III. Before we get to the election.
People don't pay attention, and they just want to, like you said, the messianic, type figure where we've been like sort of conditioned, I guess, for lack of a better term, to think that there's always going to be this one person that comes along to save us. And the bottom line is, it's about what you do day to day, one person at a time that changes anything. Yeah. I mean, like one guy is never going to save you.
That's right. And I don't understand the religious people that believe that, right? Now, I don't wear my religion on my sleeve. I consider myself religious, I consider myself Christian, but it's not something that I hyper-focus on. And I'm certainly not a Christian nationalist. I don't believe that our entire government should be ran purely based on Christianity. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are a Christian, isn't that sort of a core tenet of Christianity that no one's God, right? No one's perfect, no human, right? There is no one coming to save you. There is no one. In fact,
well, it's a combination of Christianity and even our media. I mean, like if you look at movies, I mean, like every fucking movie is about one person that changes everything, and that's what everyone is told.
Right,
like, one person can change the world.
Right, and I'm just saying Christians should not fall for it because the Bible's quite explicit that we're all with sin, none of us are perfect. So you should say, oh, I guess that means Donald Trump is, and Ron DeSantis is. Like, none of them are going to be perfect, right? And they're not going to save. But yeah, you're absolutely right. People think life's like a video game, or it's like a book or a movie. And then, like, I say this all the time, and again, people don't want to hear this. Like, everybody thinks they're the good guys and the good guys win. You might not win. We might lose this country. It's
and
true.
You might not be the good guy.
Well, I'm the good guy. But yeah, I know what you're saying, though. Like, right.
People in general, they think that they're the good guy. Like, if the media, let's put it this way. If all of the media, all of Hollywood, all of the people in power, all the elites, if they were all conservative and voted the same way that random guy, the hypothetical guy that we're talking about here believed, would you be okay with that? Because if you would, there's probably an issue with your thought process.
Well, right. That's what I say of the left. Right? The left are revolutionaries that don't trust authority, and they're leading a revolution that's completely sponsored by almost every institution in power. Right? Yep. Black Lives Matter says Nike that has Chinese sweatshops. Right? Says Chase Bank that's been accused of predatory lending to the black community. Right? And you're an anti-capitalist, and you never step back to think like, geez, why are all these institutions I hate in total lockstep with me? Never once crosses their mind. They're just like, yeah, well, they're just pretending, but that's fine. That helps me. It's like, you think that's going to help you don't think they're concerned about their bottom line? You think they're just doing this out of the goodness of their heart? We'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see. Exactly. And it's the same true of the other side. That's certainly true. Right. But for me,
we're all people.
Yeah, it's hard to not, it's hard to not have main character syndrome. It's hard to not like it would be nice. Like, I remember when I was younger, like, I had this vision of like, did you ever listen to like a song that pumps you up? And like, sometimes you'd listen to a song, it's like, I listen to metal and stuff. It's like, I could see this song playing like, for me, one of my favorite movies is Conan the Barbarian. And Conan gives this speech at the end of it where he's praying to his God and he says, all you'll remember is that few stood against many. And like, there's something romanticized about that vision. Like, I stood up to this great power. And even if I can't win, I was noble. I did this. I mean, for goodness sakes, I hate to bring this up, but like the insane extent of that's that moron that just lit himself on fire, right? There's this romanticized, like, oh, I'm doing this like incredible, great thing. I'm the main character, blah, blah, blah. And
people want to martyr themselves, and you don't realize that after you martyr yourself, you're not even going to be around to see the movie afterwards, so you didn't gain anything.
You're going to be a joke. But the reason I bring it up, even if it doesn't go to that level, right? The point is, like, Jordan Peterson, I don't know much about what he says now, but back in the day was right. Like, clean your own house. That's more important. The truth of the matter is, 200 years from now, we're all dead and no one remembers anything about us. Done. Period. With the exception of 0.0001% of the population. Your name ain't going to be in a history book. There ain't going to be statues of you. There ain't going to be a holiday in your name for almost all of us, right? So what did we really do that mattered? Well, if you're religious, did you have a relationship with God that put you in the right place? And even outside of that, the other relationships, could you live with yourself? You have to look, you could lie to everyone but yourself. Could you sleep at night knowing how you acted in life? And then your family and your loved ones and people close to you.
Yeah, see,
and
I put family first. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah,
What are you leaving behind with them?
And so to me, what people don't, like, for me, I legitimately try to say this, I passionately think our country's going in a wrong direction, and I passionately try to defend it. But when I shut this computer off, I'm going down and hang out with my wife and son. And me being a good husband and a good dad is far more important than anything I'll ever say in this show. Far more. And I'll sit here and tell you with a straight face that I've moved the needle maybe 0.0000001% in the direction, as far as national level politics that I want. I have almost no effect. I know that. Maybe I go.
Well, yeah, but if you play the rule of 5 affects 5, you could be affecting thousands of people. If you affect 5 people that affect 5 people, it could be pretty significant without ever knowing it.
That's true. But I operate under the assumption that by far the most important thing I could do is be a good husband and good dad. And
Absolutely.
If you look at that and you're doing that, and even if things
that's
don't go
actually
right,
how we fix this country. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm not trying to yell at you, but that's right there. That's how you fix the country. Focus on being a good dad, a good husband, a good person. If everybody did that, like no good father that's in the home is raising some crazy social justice blue-haired leftist. That's not happening. That's how we fix the country.
Well, and the culture, I'm sort of black-pilled politically, not really, which I could explain further later if people want, but I think that the positive changes will come culturally first, and then politics will change as a result. And I don't know if we're there yet, but I think
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
I think that the cultural changes, I'm more positive, are actually going to move in the right direction. That we're going to see people realizing the importance of family. It might not be everyone, but you're going to see core groups of people start to be proud in the family unit and sort of values.
Well, do you believe the culture is downstream from, politics downstream from culture?
Yeah, I think politics then eventually will change. And I think you're starting to see that. So the idea that some political leaders, even if it's DeSantis in 2024, even if what happened is what I suggested, that Trump dropped out, DeSantis wins convincingly, like, I don't think that a lot of the things we complain about would have been changed within 4 years or even 8 years of a DeSantis presidency. It's going to take decades of a cultural shift in the correct direction, right? And
I think there would have been a bigger shift with DeSantis, though. Well,
maybe.
I'm telling you, nobody pushed, because he takes the fight to the left. I mean, that's the difference between him and everybody else. And I think, obviously, it wouldn't have changed everything. I agree with you there. I'm just saying, it would have had a bigger impact than any other candidate.
Maybe. But Aftershock says, I think part of fixing the country is looking past your own needs. I think that's what made the Founding Fathers great, the fact they risk it all despite having so much to lose. That's certainly true. I agree. Like, for example, I have student loans. Would student loan forgiveness directly benefit me? Sure. But I realize it's a disastrous plan, so I would not suggest that nor vote for people that are suggesting that.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
So I have a theory. I grew up in the 90s. I'm 36 years old. So I remember every TV show, every person that you talk to, anyone in power said, "Oh, you have to go to college. You have to." And so all of these kids took out these loans thinking, if I don't take out this loan and I don't go to college, I'm going to end up in a box under a bridge. So we indoctrinated these kids to think that they had to go to college. So my question to you is, if we reform the system, we stopped making college so expensive, we stopped telling everybody that they had to go, and if the whole system was reformed to where it made sense, would forgiveness for the student debt then be something that you could stomach?
No. Not in the way that it's suggested, and I'll tell you why. Not
in the way it's suggested in that scenario, in that hypothetical, I mean.
Even in that scenario, and I'll explain why. Who forgives the debt? That's the important part.
Well, it's recent enough to say that we did this to these kids.
Who's we?
Like the elites that you talk about every day. Well, presumably every day.
Let me put it this way, right? Let's take education out of it. Let's just say, I think it would be easier for people to understand if we take pharmaceuticals, right? Let's say we told everyone, take vitamin C. Take vitamin C, it's great, take it. Go out and buy vitamin C and buy it. And so everyone starts doing it. They're like, well, that's just what we're told. And then it turns out vitamin C is harming them, right? Who's the group that's responsible for reparations in that? It wouldn't be the people that said, oh, I thought vitamin C was good and I told people to take vitamin C. It would be the people that made the vitamins that they gave to people. Those are the people responsible. Similarly here, if the argument is, well, we told everyone to go to college, and I was told the same thing. I was told I had to go to university. I tell people now, don't. Only go if there's a degree you specifically need, but don't go.
As you should.
Right? Like, otherwise, because I just went because I didn't know what else to do. I was kind of a smart kid. I didn't know where I was going in life. Hey, I'd go to college and party my ass off. Sounds great. That's what I did. I got a master's degree, which I don't use. I have a master's degree in the job that I have you could have without even a GED. So that's how worthless college was for me. Now, I made a lot of friends. I did debate, and I learned a lot of stuff in that vein. But the actual degree and the spending of money, it just put me in a bunch of debt. The problem is, in that vein, I'm the problem because I drank my ass off, and I'm the big problem there. But even if we'd say not, even if I was a good student, why should Joe Schmo taxpayer be on the hook instead of the university? Take their fucking endowments. If they're putting out a shitty product that they've convinced people that they have to get this product, and the product is complete crap that doesn't teach people and instead just indoctrinates them with this woke bullshit, take their endowments and then give that to the students.
Well, that's what I mean by reform the system first.
Yeah, so for something like that, I say, sure, why not? But the idea that my friends, because you know this, if you're in a rural area in Ohio, like I had a bunch of friends that weren't very good in high school. Some of them dropped out early. Some of them went to Votech and they learned how to be welders or shit like that. Soon as high school was over, bam, they're in the job market. Why should their why should they be punished through their tax dollars to pay for me who, while they were out working and building a family, I was at the fucking bar drinking my ass off? Why should they then have to pay the tens of thousands of dollars of student loans? They shouldn't. That's ridiculous. They should not be punished. And make no mistake about it, anytime the government's spending money, that money is real. It's not fake. You can't just print it. Either through taxation or through inflation, those people that didn't make the same mistake as me, they're going to pay. And why should they? None of them told me to go to college. They would have probably rather me get the job with them and hang out with them. But no, instead I went off to college while they were working their ass off. So I don't think that for me, the idea of loan forgiveness is asinine. Because it's not just, like, if you could theoretically say, okay, but only the teachers that told people to go to college should be on the hook. And, like, I mean, that's obviously ludicrous because it'd be impossible to do. But at least there's a moral foundation for that. But I can't see a foundation for forcing taxpayers in general, which includes a large group of people that were not involved in this scheme, to have to pay one dime for me. Not one.
But you do agree that these people were tricked into believing that they had to.
Maybe, but you could say that about so many things.
Like if somebody gets you in a pyramid scheme and they represent that you're going to get a certain amount of thing, if you have to do this thing to get the thing, and then you have every right to sue them, yeah?
I mean, yes, but that's a pyramid scheme. That's something very specific, right?
Well, I'm just using it as an example. Right. When somebody, if you get in a contract with somebody, if you get tricked into believing that you have to do a certain thing and they misrepresent what you're going to get from it, then you have the right to respond to that legally. And I just feel like, I mean, in my experience, it was everywhere. Like I could not turn a fucking direction without hearing about, oh, my kid's going to college. I'm sure you've experienced that too. Like it was indoctrination.
Right, yeah, but you could have said the same about the military at one point. Oh, you'll learn discipline. It's very important. You got to go defend your country. Should we sue them? I mean,
well, if they had to take out loans to do so.
At some point, you have to say, yes, we as a society have to. I mean, fuck. Like, we have a society now that pushes cultural values of premarital sex. Can I sue them? If I have sex and knock a chick up before I'm married, can I say, but it was everywhere. It was all through our culture. Everyone was saying it was the cool thing to do. I'm going to sue. Like, at some point, you have to say, like, once things, yes, there are directions that society goes. I mean, you could say the food pyramid back in the day. Remember when they told you how to eat so many grains? Now they tell you that gluten's bad. Can I sue them? Can I sue all of the people that were talking about fitness that said, oh, this is what you should eat, this is your dietary? So at some point you have to say, like, I don't know that there's legal ramifications. There should be cultural ramifications, right? But I don't know that you put people civilly on the hook or by dishing out tax dollars. Now, for me, the one difference in this situation is that the product being offered that people were buying is shit, right? If the product theoretically wasn't shit, if you're still getting an education and you were just lied to about, but you need that education to get a good job, and so you get that great education and everyone's getting it and they're not getting good jobs, and the price had stayed the same, they weren't inflating the price, then I don't know what the beef is. It's like, well, you made a bad decision. You didn't think it through. You can't really say, but everyone told me. It's like, just well, like...
what I mean by that is like, I'm like, if you get accused of, if a woman accuses you of a crime, and you didn't do it, but what you do is you go ahead and you pay it off just because you don't want the shitstorm. You just want to be over it. You want to be done with it. That's more the angle that I mean, is like, if we reform the college system And then, the banks and the colleges are all held accountable. I'm not saying that you raise the hardworking person's taxes, and I understand money has to come from somewhere, but there are ways to make people pay for it and to help people out a little bit. But the system has to be reformed first, or it's just going to happen again.
Well, yeah, but the reforming the system's the important part. The reimbursing
Exactly.
people, I don't see how you could do it. I just don't. I don't see a fair way to do it. I can't think of a mechanism, short of taking money from the endowments. But then again, like, how do you decide who to divvy that money up? Because even now, you say, well, they were lied to. Well, look up the average earnings of a 4-year degree earner versus someone who doesn't have one. And guess what you'll find? 4-year degree earner owns more money. One of the reasons not to pay people's student loans back, because it's more evidence that in general, people that in general are making on average more money a year are now going to be given a government subsidy, and the people that are making less money that never went to college are now going to be the ones paying for that and on the hook. So, I mean, how much of it was a lie? Well, the education was a lie, right? But was you need this to make more money? No. Because everyone bought into the system. It was true. There were certain jobs of a certain salary you couldn't get unless you had that piece of paper. The implication was it's because the knowledge that piece of paper represents is what you need to qualify for the job. And that was a lie. You just needed the piece of paper. That's all you needed. That's why I predict, and again, I've heard people like Jordan Peterson say this, a better system is to go back to a system where we just require testing. You know how you have to pass the bar to get into law school? What if we did that for almost every job? And so then you make the test.
Well, testing is racist, so we can't do that.
Well, of course, right. So to whatever job it is, you make a test that that 90% of people will fail. And then what you do is you have individual tutors that say, I will train you to have the knowledge to pass this test. Then you don't have to take your fucking gen eds and your woke anthropology classes. You just pass the test and you're in. If you could do it immediately out of high school, you're in. If it takes you 4 years of a tutor to do it, so be it. That's what it takes. But this
if you pass the test, that means you're capable of doing the job with the training.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even a written test. Maybe you want to be a mechanic. Fuck it. Get in the shop. Show us what you can do. Oh, you can't do it? Okay, well, we offer a tutor here. For $500 a month, he'll take you under his wing, like sort of an apprentice system. Then next month.
Oh, shit. I've taken so much of your time up. My bad. I just looked at what time it was.
That's all right. I will let you go because I do want to talk about the Biden testimony transcript a little. But thanks for calling in. That's all right. I talk more than you, so no problem. All right, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for calling in. We'll see you. Bye.
No problem.
All right. Let me move out of this. Annabelle, what are you scrounging for over there? You crazy. No, a good call. Of course it would create riots on the street. Because, again, remember what we're talking about. And this is obviously not indicative of everyone, but in general, these people on the left feel they're better people than you, and they understand that the status quo benefits them. The status quo does not benefit the greatest person getting it. It's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's late, so it's slipping my mind. It's such an easy word, too. It's not, the most qualified person. It's not a meritocracy. There's a good word, V-dub. Thank you. Right. We don't have a meritocracy. So the most qualified person doesn't get the job. That's not what we have. What is it? Columbia Medical School. I just saw it's being reported now. Turns out the president, or I think it's the president, one of the higher ups at Columbia Medical School plagiarized 80% of their dissertation from Wikipedia. Doctors. That's a school training doctors. They don't want a meritocracy because that doesn't benefit them and their fucking goons. Even when I went to grad school, especially. So I did grad school over, are you okay, buddy? Annabelle, come here, buddy. What are you doing? Oh, okay, you found a blanket. Okay. When I was in grad school, I've got a speech come up if you want for a second. I got a speech communication degree. This is Dorothy. Dorothy's young and healthy. What are you, 4? Annabelle's not so young and not so healthy, but Dorothy's doing good. But my degree fell within the humanities. I was speech communication was my degree. 15% of my coursework was defending why the humanities are important. 50% of it. Do you think engineers need to have courses on why engineers are important? But that's what we were doing. Why is taking humanity so important? Why is DEI and humanity so important? So, I mean, that's what I was, when I get my master's degree. 2013, 14, maybe? Hey, buddy. How you feeling? Come here, Annabelle. I'll show you Annabelle. Come here, bud. Come here. No. You stay here. Come here. You want to come up? Come on. Not you, Dorothy. I know you're bigger. Come here, Annabelle. Come on. Come on. Oh, all right. This is Annabelle. You went down? Okay. She is, she's not doing good. I don't know how much longer I'll have her. She's got a huge lump on her that's growing to the point where it's pretty worrisome. And the problem is they can't operate because she's having problems with her liver and liver enzymes. And now they found a pretty serious spot in her liver. So we don't know how much we could do for her. So she's not really in pain right now. That you could see things are starting to go. She's 13, so she tries to play hard, but she's getting winded much easier. She's got a sty on her eye that's growing that's affecting her vision a little, and it's a bummer. It really is. She's a great dog, and I got her almost right after I started dating my wife. So she's been with us almost our whole relationship. It's really sad. My son really likes her too. So, we're trying to make her as happy and as comfortable as possible. For a while after our first trip to the vet, and they said she needs to get healthier. We're still doing like medication, vitamins, but we were really pushing the no table scraps. Let's get out and exercise. We bought the expensive dog food that was supposed to be for older dogs and for weight loss, just to make sure. And sadly, when we went back in, her numbers were even worse. And the vet, he's a very nice vet. He's trying to put an optimistic spin on it, but you could tell he's saying, like, at this point. So we're still doing the medication. We're still doing the exercise and having fun and things of that nature. But we're also cheating, and we're doing maybe a little hamburger and, trying to make our life as good as possible. Thanks, English. I appreciate it. Trying to make our life as good as possible. Because she's been special to us, and who knows? Maybe she lives another 3 years. I'm all for it. I really am. But trying to temper our expectations, because is it really worth it to you can't eat table scraps, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to be healthy, you can only have one scoop of food, blah blah blah. If it's like it's going to extend our life another 2 weeks, So I don't know, but not to get too downbeat about it. She's great, and we're still enjoying her while we can. Normally, she's not up in the office with me, but because my wife's busy doing stuff, they're rummaging upstairs here. I can hear them now fighting in the other room. So they're funny. They're good dogs. I used to put them on the channel more when Dorothy was a puppy. We'd go out in the yard, and I'd take my phone out, and we'd film some stuff. But all right, Hunter Biden stuff, James Biden. So I'll be totally honest. I haven't read through the vast majority of either transcript. I started on Hunter Biden's. I thumbed through probably quick reading about 30 pages. Particularly, I read almost all of the Matt Gaetz questioning of Hunter Biden. So it's worth talking about what we learned and what we didn't learn based on the little bit I've read and sort of what I've seen other people talking about. So I don't think by any means that this testimony specifically was a smoking gun, nor was it ever going to be. If anyone thinks that after all of this preparation and some of the highest powered lawyers that Hunter Biden was going to go in and say, yeah, Dad took the money from me, it's just nonsensical. Now, maybe you hoped the Republicans had more evidence in the form of bank records or something like that. But remember, they're unable to subpoena the bank records of Joe Biden. So we have no idea sort of where he's getting money. All we have is the bank records that have been subpoenaed of Hunter, James, others, such as that. So it would be difficult to divine that necessarily. Let's see, come on. Go away. Here's a little streaming thing that I've done in the past. So I'm staring at OBS right now, and it's got my audio mixing and stuff like that, and I can see certain things. I can see the chat in the right here. Below the chat is my controls, and the controls are simple. It says like start streaming, stop streaming, and then it says start recording, and then it says studio mode, settings, and exit. If an alert pops up on my computer, it'll pop up in the bottom right corner of the screen. And when I X that alert out, it is directly where the stop streaming button is. So I've clicked that before and stopped my stream prematurely because I was just trying to close out a little notification window, which is stupid. Anyway, so having said all that, what did we learn from the Hunter Biden testimony specifically? Well, I think the most important thing we learned is the strategy that Hunter's going to use going forward. And for me, and I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this, it's actually it's an obvious strategy, but it's really ingenious when you think about it, right? Here's going to be the twofold strategy Hunter Biden's using. It's going to be partially the Biden defense, the Joe Biden defense, he has dementia, so he doesn't have a good memory. It's going to be that because Hunter Biden was a drug addict, he can conveniently not remember things. Conveniently. He'll also conveniently remember things over the same period. So, for example, he will 100% know that he didn't discuss business with his father. He remembers that. But he has all these blank spots when it comes to specific things that he attended, meetings he attended, emails that he sent, responded to, etc. That was, I was an addict, I don't know, right? Simultaneously with that, they're going to use the indictment of Smirnov, which is, you can understand now, in my opinion, why the Weiss team that was protecting the Bidens the whole while did this, because it allows to buttress their defense, which their argument's going to be, did you see that indictment of that Smirnov guy? See, there's all these Russians that are spreading disinformation about me, and Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump too. They're trying to spread disinformation. So I don't know if this specific email's right or not. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's disinformation, maybe I said that, maybe I don't. I don't remember, but it could, for all we know, be disinformation. Prove it's not. That's going to be the strategy going forward. And he even specifically at one point, when asked something specific about Gates, specifically brings up Smirnov's name. All I know, Gal Luft and Smirnov, so, I don't know. I was an addict. I don't remember. That's going to be the strategy going forward. And particularly when it comes to the laptop, he's standing by the claim. He's making this claim. He never dropped the computer off at the laptop. He never did. And he's claiming that there are certain things that have been released to the press from the laptop that he never said, that he never sent. And so let's say that they're able to prove that, or they're able to convince people of that. That then allows them to be like, so everything you think, because the way the media will run with this is very similar to what you see with the Smirnov thing. So remember, Smirnov is a confidential human source that's been trusted that said he heard Zlochevsky, the leader of Burisma, say that he paid Joe Biden $5 million, right? And now that guy's been indicted. So let's assume, we went through Wednesday why he might not be lying, but let's assume for a minute he's lying. The way the media and the Democrats are running with that is that disproves the entire Burisma narrative. Disproves it all. How? What does that have to do with what we know Joe Biden said about firing Viktor Shokin, et cetera, all that? But they're like, doesn't matter, it disproves it all. Similarly, that's what they'll do here. If we could convince people that there is one of these emails that wasn't true, then that must mean that they're all viewed skeptically. It doesn't matter if that's true. You could be like, well, for example, all of the emails that Tony Bobulinski provided and that Rob Walker provided and James Gillard provided, those clearly are real. They're right, because they have them too, with Hunter Biden attached to them. So unless Rudy Giuliani also snuck into their homes and infected their devices, those have to be real. He never said while he was sober. So that's what the strategy is going to be. And it's actually ingenious. And the media will run with it. You see, you know how like with the her thing, by the way, I should have put it out today. We're on over 3 weeks now. None of the none of the Democrats that I debated that told me, and there were many of them on video and elsewhere, that told me that Donald Trump reading classified or saying on tape that he had classified information in front of a writer was clear evidence of a crime. Not one of them said anything about Joe Biden doing that multiple times and then reading No, Pisco hasn't commented. Now, he may have said something on a stream. He hasn't put anything on X. And I know, as far as I know, he hasn't got to that part yet. Hasn't got to it. That's his official stance. So we're 3 weeks in. And what happens is they wait for someone to say something. And then that becomes the narrative. And it doesn't matter if you could be like, wait a minute, there's a bunch of problems with that. They just say, it doesn't matter. It's been debunked. It's done. Move on. Next news cycle. Oh, look, a new indictment of Trump. Here we are. And that's what'll happen. That's what happens with all of this stuff. Probably the biggest bombshell that people were talking about, I don't know if bombshell is the right word, is we have confirmation that the big guy is Joe Biden. 10% for the big guy is reference to Joe Biden. We have confirmation of that. The defense is going to rest on two things that Hunter's going to say. Because, well, three things, actually. Three. And the third one's really hilarious. In fact, we'll start with that. So the Biden team, right, is saying, like, I don't remember getting that email, so I don't know anything about it, and no one ever suggested giving Joe Biden money, and if they did, I would have said that's stupid. But even if that did happen, and this is excuse number 3, it was after Joe Biden was vice president, so it's no big deal. You get that? It didn't happen, and if it did happen, I don't remember. And if I do remember, it was okay anyways. That's the defense. Didn't happen, but if it did, I don't remember. But if I do remember, it was okay anyways. That's the argument. So he's saying, but obviously the problem with that would be that it shows that Joe Biden lied. The idea that Joe Biden wasn't involved in the business or stood no financial stake and it was never considered is clearly a lie then. And the idea that when all of these other red flags come up, like, for example, the firing of Victor Shokin, which is something it looks like Burisma wanted, the staunch defense of no, completely separated from all of my son's business deals, flies out the fucking window then. That's number 3. Number 2, the argument they're making, and this one's pretty good, is that there's a question mark after that. So this email is from James Gillar, who's one of the business associates of Rob Walker, Hunter Biden, Tony Bobulinski. And it says, here's the payout schedule. 20% for Tony, 20% for Walker, 20% for H, who's Hunter, 10% for Jim Biden, or maybe it says James, and then 10% for H to be held by the big guy, space, question mark. And they're saying, the question mark proves that that was just one individual guy throwing out a question. And that ties into the first defense that they're going to have is Hunter Biden didn't write this email, which is true, and we've always known this. It was written by his business partner, James Gillar. And so they're going to say, oh, no, Hunter had nothing to do with this. And he would roundly reject any idea that his father received any money from any of his business ventures. And so that's the narrative that's being pushed out there. Yeah, thanks, Delicate. Great question. Now, the problem with that narrative is that it's answered by, we're just going to do this. He could have just said the Fifth Amendment, but the problem is that looks bad politically for his father. If he just says, I refuse to answer anything, the Fifth Amendment, well, then the Republicans are going to say, see, he knows he's corrupt, he knows he's guilty, and it would be convincing to people. But theoretically, legally, he could have just said Fifth Amendment, I believe. I believe, and I could be wrong, part of the agreement to drop the contempt charge when he didn't show up to the first time he was subpoenaed was that he would come and not rely on the Fifth Amendment. Now, let me see if I could... Now, the problem is, what I need to do is actually go through and try to find the actual emails. Annabelle, you all right, bud? But let's go back to this transcript of Tony Bobulinski. So he says, question. Please go on. Please go forward with the equity part. Then the distribution of equity. Now, previously, we'd gone through the actual documents that were signed for Oneida Holdings. That's the group that we're talking about. And this bubble diagram used to spell out the different ownership. But this shows 20% for H. H is Hunter Biden. 20% for RW is Rob Walker. 20% for JG is James Gilliar, and 20% for TB. That's me, Tony Bobulinski. And then it says 10 for Jim, and that's Jim Biden. And then it says 10% for H held for the big guy. The H in that message is Hunter Biden, and the big guy 100% is Joe Biden. Questioner, why would you say 100%? Answer, and this is Bobulinski's answer. It's crystal clear. There's no one else that would be listing as the big guy. Remember, this email was drafted to me with an expectation that no one outside the party, this wouldn't be part of congressional hearings. These guys are all low key. I was low key. Well, why was he using code? Why was he calling Hunter H? Why is he using the big guy? Well, because the way James Gilliar communicated because of his intel background and the things he was doing around the world. But when he says 10% held by H for the big guy, it's Joe Biden. I saw that you released the transcript of Rob Walker this morning. I read it quickly. I looked through some of the things, and I saw that he wouldn't answer the question on who the big guy is. I was surprised that he would lie to you because he wasn't sworn under oath, but the penalties of, Congress, that he would lie to you and act like he didn't know who the big guy was. The big guy was Joe Biden. That's who they were talking about. And the other lie that's been told for the last 4 years, including by Hunter Biden's lawyers, was that nobody responded to this email. You've seen that comment, right? I think Rob Walker referenced it in his testimony. Hunter Biden responded to this email, I think 3+ times. And I believe you guys have them if Rob Walker produced the emails. If I haven't produced them, we will make sure you have them. Hunter Biden himself responded to this exact email at a minimum 2, maybe 3 times. And what was the response in those emails? He didn't ask James, who the heck are you talking about? Who's the big guy? What did Hunter scream about? Because if you read the emails, if you can get them for the future hour that we have, he is demanding getting paid more money, talking about his divorce and alimony payments, and that $850,000 is anywhere near enough. That he's going to have to, I think he makes references to needing at least $2 million. And I respond to Hunter, this is $10 million isn't for us to just play ourselves and take out the company. This $10 million is to capitalize the business so I can go out and hire the world's best bankers to travel around the world and find great deals for us to deploy, tens of billions of dollars in. And so I would ask that you guys find those emails and enter them into the record, because not only are Hunter's lawyers lying about that statement, I believe Rob Walker, if I read it correctly, when I read through the transcript quickly, states that nobody responded to the email. Hunter responded numerous times. He was aware of the contents. He was arguing over the contents of the email. And not once did anybody else who was on the chain goes, guys, who's the big guy that we're talking about? Or Hunter didn't invoke don't reference my father. James Gilliar, are you out of your mind? We can't use the big guy in emails. You can't find any document or email exchange that says that. So the 10% held for the big guy was Hunter Biden, and the big guy was Joe Biden. The point is this. Once you acknowledge, as Hunter Biden has done, is that he's H and the big guy is Joe Biden, Hunter's defense is going to be, I don't remember that. I didn't really respond to that. But what I would have said, because we were so sure to not include Dad in any financial dealings with our business, that I would have absolutely lambasted anyone for the mere suggestion that Joe Biden would get money. I wouldn't have accepted. Absolutely not. But then the problem's going to be, hey, thanks so much, Darth, for the super chat. Thank you. I missed it there. Thank you, man. Thanks for the talk. Keep up the good work. I will. Thank you, man. Call back in sometime. Really appreciate it. So the problem with Hunter Biden's answer, he's like, I don't remember, but I didn't respond, blah, blah, blah. He did respond. Now, I have to see those specific emails. But Tony Bobulinski's saying, no, I have the emails. He responded. And if Hunter was really outraged that his dad's name would be brought up, and that's beyond the pale, that his dad would be involved in this business, why didn't he respond like, what is this shit? No. Ask yourself this. If Joe Biden wasn't a point of this venture whatsoever, it didn't have anything to do with it, why would James Gilliar, one of the 4 partners, even mention his name? Let's say, theoretically, Nico Pluto's dad's famous. Let's say Nico Pluto's dad's actually Tom Brady, right? And me and Nico are getting involved in a business venture. And one of the things we plan on doing is saying, by the way, Tom Brady's one of the founders' fathers. We're opening a restaurant. We hope that will drive in business. So let's say that we sit down and we start talking about how we're going to divvy up profits of this, right? And I'm like, okay, I'll get 50% and you get 50%. And Nico's like, or let's say there's a third partner. I'm like, we each get 33%. And Nico's like, that sounds good. And then the third partner says, actually, I was thinking we each get 25, 25, 25, 25. And then we give 25 to Nico's father. The obvious question I would have, and this is the question Tony Bablinski would have had, which is like, why? Nico's dad ain't doing shit. Why does he get 25%? That's absurd. And Tony Bablinski says that's what he said, not about Joe Biden, but about James Biden. He's like, James isn't involved. Why the fuck's he getting money? And Bablinski goes on to talk about this. He's like, I was sort of outraged because we're not talking 10% like $10. We're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And he's like, people fight in court for years about businesses 1 or 2%. So just handing, like, you might not understand if you're not in a huge business like this, but giving 10% to a guy who literally has nothing to do with the business is a huge deal. It's like, wait a minute, what is this guy doing to warrant 10%? He's not even involved in the business. But it was the Biden brand. But they don't make that conversation about Joe. Why? Because they understood what Joe was doing. Joe was the name. They got it. Why would Gilyar suggest even giving 10% to Joe Biden? Why? And why wouldn't everyone else be like, what? Huh? Of course not. Especially Hunter Biden. Instead, they start talking about other things. Now, another defense that they'll use is, well, when this business arrangement actually settled down, Joe Biden was no longer included. No shit. Again, what did the email say? 10% held by H for the big guy. They were never going to put Joe Biden's name on the paperwork. Ever. Does Hunter Biden really want us to believe that they're having these conversations with these business people that are going to get in this huge multinational business that could potentially be handling billions of dollars? And James Gilyar was so out of the loop. One of the 4 people that were involved, it was so out of the loop that he was like, oh, fuck, I thought Joe Biden was in on this. My bad. And yet no one ever said, wait, what? Huh? That's what they want you to believe. Oh, perish the thought that anyone would have even mentioned Joe Biden. Except James Gilyar this one time, but he put a question mark after it. What? Well, and anyways, it ended up that Joe Biden didn't get the money. How do we know that? They said H would hold the money for the big guy. Of course they were never going to wire it directly into Joe Biden's bank account. Now that's basically the only part of Hunter Biden's testimony I went through. But of course, the people that are just picking up Hunter Biden's narrative's like, oh, it was no big deal anyways. It was after my dad was VP and it was a question mark and I didn't say and dad was never involved. And they're like, that's proof. Hunter Biden's, that's it. Time to end this sham investigation. What are you talking about? Now, the other thing is, the most important thing of why this occurred, what they're going to do, they're going to try to find evidence that Hunter Biden perjured himself. That's what they're going to do. They're going to try to find evidence that Hunter Biden said, no, that didn't happen, and then prove that actually that did happen. So now you lied under oath to Congress. That's what they're going to try to do. And my prediction is they will be able to do that. They'll be able to provide evidence from Tony Bablinski or elsewhere that some of the meetings or emails that Hunter Biden said didn't occur actually did occur and that he lied. They're now calling for public testimony of Hunter Biden, and part of that will be to see if he keeps his story straight, which Hunter said he'd be more than happy to testify publicly. Okay, let's hear it. Hunter Biden's defense is going to be, well, he misremembered. He was a drug addict. If they prove that he lied. It wasn't a lie because he just didn't remember. All of the people that told you, and I saw Aftershock mention this earlier, the people that told you when they charged Mike Flynn for lying to the FBI on a 302, because he said that could have happened, I don't remember, they said, ha, clearly he remembered, will now say, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense that Hunter didn't remember. He said something didn't happen and then it did. He had a poor memory. He was a drug addict. That's what they'll say. That will literally be the argument going forward. So my prediction is Republicans will be able to point out that he perjured himself and lied. Democrats will say that's not really a lie, it's just misremembering, and charges will never be filed. That's how this will end, this particular part of this saga. Take it to the bank, baby. That's what'll happen. They're not going to put him through the ringer and threaten his kids like they did Mike Flynn. Yeah, isn't it nice to be a Biden? I don't remember as a panacea. Remember, I debated Pisco and he said, what? So I don't remember its magic words? Mark my words. He will defend those magic words when it comes to the Bidens. Mark my words. Guarantee it. And so will almost all the Democrats. They will. That's right. He was a crackhead. That's what you guys all said it. Another thing that's coming out of this, which I think is hilarious, is the idea that they're now trying to make the argument that Hunter Biden was qualified to be on the board of directors of a company like Burisma. And what Hunter says is like, I was on the board of directors of like 10 other companies and blah, blah, blah. And all that's true. But the reason he was on a board in 10 other companies was also because he was Joe Biden's son. That's why he was there. Being on the board of directors in a bunch of companies doesn't mean that you're justified to be the board of a director on a company in a country you know nothing about and don't speak the language that deals with a product that you've never dealt with. But I've been on boards before. And just like when I debated Pondering, it is one of the things you know how corrupt this shit is when they're unwilling to even admit the most basic things. It is undoubtable that by far and away the most important qualification of Joe Biden or Hunter Biden being on the board of Burisma was that he was the vice president's son. Why is that so hard to admit? Yeah, you're right. They probably hired me because I was Joe Biden's son. So I took advantage of the opportunity. And by the way, my resume isn't the worst. But no, instead it's look how impressive my resume is. How dare you suggest? Why are they unwilling to admit that? Because they know. What did Kushner do? I keep hearing this. The problem was, look, I have no problem. I have no problem if the standard's going to be anyone who trades on their politician family member's name now gets gone after. I don't think that's a crime. The reason that this is such a big deal is the allegations that Joe Biden was benefiting and personally using his station as pay for play. He was taking meetings with people based on the money. He was enacting policy based on the money. That's the problem. Just saying, well, Jared Kushner received money. I don't fucking like Jared Kushner. I don't care. Throw him in jail. But what's the crime? If Kushner received money and then you could draw a direct line to, and then his father-in-law enacted X policy, okay, that's different. Joe Biden literally issued a quid pro quo to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son's company. Once that prosecutor was fired, the new guy came in and promptly dropped the investigation. It doesn't get much more clear-cut than conflict of interest than that. Joe got $440,000 cash. He also got $200,000 cash. And we've known this for quite some time. The $200,000 check said for a loan, and yet Joe Biden is unwilling to release the paperwork proving that that was a loan. And the Democrats are perfectly fine with that. They're like, oh, they even made, when that testimony came out, I remember when it came out, right? I remember the lefties on X and elsewhere were like, oh, this is devastating. Republicans talked about $200,000, but it was just a loan. Literally, any excuse works for them. There was no they didn't even for once go, oh, they're claiming it was a loan, so you have to fill out certain paperwork for that, right? For a loan of that amount. So is there paperwork? They didn't even say that. They were just like, Said loan, that's it. Okay. I guess that's good enough. Nah, it was a loan. We'll see if that works for you, right? If you're accused of corruption, some organization's investigating you. Why did you got all this money and then it looks like you paid a bribe to someone? No, it was a loan. Oh, okay. So you have paperwork of when that money was given to you? No, you're not allowed to see that. Okay, case closed. And by the way, just so we're clear, you already see that the committee is suggesting that he perjured himself, Hunter. Let's see if I can find it. I saved it, I think. Oops. Oh, I want to play this real quick. So I did admit to being wrong about something in my pondering and debate. I had said to pondering that Joe Biden had said previously that he didn't even meet the business associates. And unfortunately, what I was able to find was him saying that he didn't talk business ever. And so I said I was wrong about that. But Joe Biden saves my ass today by saying what I said he did. Here we go. Ready for this?
Speaker Johnson has accused you of lying repeatedly about your interactions with your son and brother's business partners. What's your response to him?
Don't read the record of every single witness. These guys got to stop.
But you did interact with their partners.
I did not interact with their partners.
You didn't have dinner or lunch and coffee? Speaker
so there he is. Now he's saying he didn't interact with them, which would imply meeting them. So there you go. There you are, pondering if you're listening. There's your proof. So Biden's now back to saying, I never interacted with any of these people, even though almost all the testimony from multiple people says that's not true. And we actually have photos, records of phone calls, etc. But Joe Biden's out there today saying never interacted with any of them. Now, here's Oversight Committee put out $10 ago. Jim Biden Transcript release. Today we're releasing the transcript of our transcribed interview with Jim Biden as part of our impeachment inquiry. See the key excerpts. Jim Biden initially said he was not part of the deal with Rob Walker, Hunter Biden, James Gilliard, and Tony Bobulinski. But when presented with an agreement with his signature on it, he changed his story to say he did not recall signing the agreement. Jim Biden's testimony conflicts with Hunter and Tony Bobulinski's sworn testimony. Both Hunter Biden and Tony Bobulinski testified that Joe Biden met with Tony Bobulinski, Hunter Biden, and Jim Biden at a hotel in California. Jim Biden says this never happened. Jim Biden testified that Hunter Biden received a diamond from a parent at Hunter Biden's child's school when Joe Biden was vice president to entice him to do business with CEFC, which is the Chinese company. According to Jim Biden, Hunter Biden gave it to Jim Biden to have it appraised. Jim Biden then claims he threw the diamond away. Hunter Biden only disclosed receiving what appears to be a separate diamond from CFC chairman Yi during a trip to Miami in February 2017, which Hunter Biden says he also gave to Jim Biden. Jim Biden said he called the law firm Monzak, Mercy, and Browder and requested money from Joe Biden's bank account. Jim Biden does not know if the money came from Joe Biden's S Corporation, Celtic Capri, or his personal bank account. Jim Biden received massive loans from Democrat donors but hasn't repaid them. There's a couple of those. So you can already see that there's discrepancy between Jim Biden and Hunter Biden's testimony. I don't recall. You can see I don't know. No, we didn't have a business arrangement. This document says you did. Oh, okay, I don't recall that. Give me a second. I'm going to go here. My stupid mouse wheel just not working. Here's, just so you know, the oversight's key excerpts from Hunter Biden's testimony. Contrary to Joe Biden's past statement, Hunter Biden admitted he received money from Chinese companies, but characterized it as incredibly ethical. Hunter Biden admitted he traveled with then Vice President Biden on Air Force Two to Beijing, where he then introduced his father to his business partner, Jonathan Lee. Then Vice President Biden later went on to write a college letter of recommendation for Lee's son. But remember, Biden just told the press he never interacted with any of these business partners. But here he not only met them, but then wrote a letter of recommendation. Lee, the CEO of a state-backed investment firm, wired $250,000 to Hunter Biden as a loan that Hunter Biden never repaid. Instead, Dem donor Kevin Morris took on the debt for Hunter. Hunter Biden confirmed CEFC Chairman Yi, who is linked to the CCP, gave him a diamond. Rob Walker previously told the committees that Joe Biden met with CEFC officials at the Four Seasons Hotel in D.C. Hunter Biden could not recall. When asked about sending a threatening WhatsApp message demanding payment from the CEFC in July 2017, Hunter Biden said he was out of his mind, yet he knew his father was not sitting next to him. Right? Now this is key. Let me go back here and see. So what's happening is, remember the message he said, I know this important guy, he's sitting right next to me. My dad's sitting right next to me. You're going to do this if we don't get paid. So what Hunter's saying is, the threatening aspect of it was because he's literally out of his mind on drugs, but he was sober enough to know there's no possible chance his father was next to him. See how that works? However, it's been reported that laptop photos show Hunter was at Joe Biden's Delaware home the day he sent the messages, and CFC poured money into Hunter Biden's joint account days later. New York Post. Hunter Biden was at Joe's Delaware home the same day he used his dad as leverage in China BizTech's laptop photos reveal. Hunter Biden admitted he attempted to set up a lunch between his father and CFC associates. Hunter Biden confirmed Tony Bobulinski's testimony that he met with Joe Biden and James Biden in California. Now, we were told for years that we didn't know if we could trust Tony Bobulinski, that he personally met with Joe Biden. Remember, Tony Bobulinski says he met and basically Joe knew what the business arrangement was and was like, yeah, take care of my son, blah, blah, blah. Hunter Biden admitted he put his father on speakerphone with his foreign business associates. Hunter Biden confirmed that his father, then Vice President Biden, dined with Kanius Rakishev, a Kakistani oligarch, at Cafe Milano. Devin Archer confirmed this was around the same time that the Kakistani oligarch sent money for Hunter Biden's expensive sport car. Yet Hunter Biden was evasive about the payment during his testimony. Hunter Biden confirmed that his father, then Vice President Biden, dined with Russian oligarch Baturina, Kazakhstani oligarch Rakishev, and Burisma's corporate secretary Vadim at Cafe Milano in D.C. Hunter Biden's testimony confirms much of the evidence uncovered to date in our impeachment inquiry of President Joe Biden. However, parts of his testimony are inconsistent with other witnesses' testimonies. It's clear that we need to have a public hearing for the truth for the American people. Also, like, one of the most ridiculous things is someone gives you this diamond, it's an expensive diamond, to encourage you to do business with it. And Hunter gives it to Jim, and Jim's like, I'm going to throw this diamond away. Throw it away. He threw it away, is the claim. Does anyone believe that? I'm just going to throw these thousands of dollars of diamond away. Does anyone believe that? That's their official answer. I don't know. Again, I'll have to read through the testimony. I don't know. What I've seen of the left posting is, did you see Eric Swalwell's questioning? So let's see if we can find this. Here, look, just so you can see, this is what, and you can see sort of the bootlickers, they all post the same stuff. Eric Swalwell was devastating when he asked questions of Hunter Biden. It was devastating. You ready to see? Here's one to post. Second. Third. Here's the Krasensteins. Brilliant. You ready? You ready for the big bombshells? Here we go. They're all posting the same thing. Swalwell. Anytime your father was in government prior to presidency, did he ever operate a hotel? No, says Hunter. So he's never operated a hotel where foreign nationals spent millions of dollars while he's in office? No, he's not. Did your father ever employ in the Oval Office any direct family member to also work in the Oval Office? Biden, my father has never employed any direct family members. While your father was president, did anyone in the family receive 41 trademarks from China? No. Swalwell, as president and leader of the party, has your father ever tried to install a chairperson of the party, a daughter-in-law, or anyone else? Biden says, no, I don't think anyone in my family would be crazy enough. Swalwell, has your father ever had his time as an adult been fined $355 million by any state that he worked in? Biden, no, thank God. Anyone in your family ever strike multi-billion-dollar deal with the Saudi government while your family is in office? No. Swalwell, that's all I got. But what about Trump, is what they say. And that's how you know that this testimony wasn't the glaring, when that's what they're focused on. Oh, see, this was devastating. Hunter killed him. Okay. And again, the basically the people that are saying that this debunks everything are just saying, well, if we completely take Hunter Biden at his word, well, that's it. He says Joe wasn't involved. There we go. It debunked the whole thing. What? Yeah, great question, Robert Whaley. Just me. How much, Ninja? Rib? Jeez. Oh, okay. So again, I don't know. I'm so busy. I really need to get time to read James Biden, Tony Bablinski, Hunter Biden's transcript, try to go through the emails the best that I can and try to get to the bottom of this, to get more details specifically on what was said. But the admission that, yeah, right. I mean, the problem is, one of the things I've realized in doing this, for me, a big, wake-up moment was the first impeachment of Trump. And I couldn't believe that I was doing a better job than any of the Republicans. I was just like, wait, what? From publicly available information. And so what I learned is, and you all should learn the same lesson. When you go through this stuff yourself, oftentimes you find stuff that no one's talking about. If you just rely on, who are we relying on? Yeah, there are good people out there, but if you just rely on someone whose job it is to go through this, mainstream media ain't going to do it. So I like to try to go through this stuff myself, whether it be the Inspector General report or the Mueller report, any of these things. But when I used to do this more, I wasn't a dad. I wasn't working 80, 90 hours a week. It's tough. It's tough to go through this shit. I mean, look at these. Granted, I'm sure there's some endnotes. 418 pages on the Tony Bablinski transcript. And I'm sure the James Biden and Hunter Biden ones are similarly lengthed. So, I mean, it's difficult to sit through all this stuff. Then there was the Herr report, going through it, hundreds of pages. I think 160 or something like that. So, I mean, it's difficult to find time to go through it. And, it would be nice if someone like me didn't have to, because there's, people that are going through this with a fine-tooth comb that have a national voice that are able to let everyone know. But unfortunately, I don't know. All right. Anything else anyone wanted to talk about briefly? I should be done here by midnight. So, locking up media people. Biden and Trump, Texas. I honestly saw almost nothing about either of them, if I'm completely honest. So, could be true, blank page. Enjoy it while it lasts, I guess, right? I'm going to keep fighting, but yeah. No more callers. Got it. If Trump doesn't win, how bad can he get over the next 4 years? It's not Trump winning or it being Biden that's indicative of how bad it'll get. It's what they're willing to do to get the win. And it shows that they're more emboldened and more brazen. And so I think you can see, particularly with the lawsuits against Trump, that this will be the norm going forward. It will literally be a system where they're like, we will just bankrupt. And what you'll see is it'll start to become, it's not just going to be political leaders, right? They'll do it to wealthy people that they don't culturally like. They'll bankrupt them. There'll be people calling out of the woodwork from 20 years ago to say they're rape victims and winning judgments of $50 million. And they're going to start to set the precedent more politically and culturally that no dissent will be welcomed. There will be the illusion of dissent. We will have Republicans that are Mitch McConnell's and Nikki Haley's that agree with the Democrats on all the important issues that help them and their allies control more money and power. But anyone who credibly has a chance to affect real change will be targeted using lawfare, censorship, etc., even more expressly. Because if they get away with it now, they'll set the precedent to get away with it in the future. To really understand how this works, consider COVID. There's a Conaboy. Conaboy's considered COVID. He supported lockdowns, right? Consider COVID. The problem with COVID and the lockdowns was never going to be exclusively to COVID. The problem was that the government saw that they could get away with nonsensical bullshit and blatant hypocrisy. They could lock all of you down, and then they could be like, fuck it, we'll have parties, we'll go to the French Laundry, whatever. And they got away with it. There was no consequences. And the problem is that will escalate. Maybe not this year or next year or 10 years from now, but it will happen again. It will. Once the test run is done and it sees, oh, okay, this is the line that we could go to, then they'll push that line further next time. That's what will occur. And so if it's, well, we could rely on lawfare to keep out of someone we think is a threat. I saw that they're saying they're going to start releasing CCT footage. Trust me, that CCT footage will be selectively released, and it will include blurring of people that would harm the official narrative. But yeah, I guess it's better to release. Why wait until now? Right? Why is it taking so long? We'll see. Do you think they'll release everything, or will we find out 4 years from now there was additional footage that they had that they didn't release? Because if there was footage that they knew was damning to the narrative, and it's only an hour of footage from one camera, and they didn't release that, but they released everything else, would you know? But yeah, so that's my answer to that. How bad will it get? Curtis remains riding with Biden. Good luck with that, man. I hope you're driving, because I don't know that I would trust that dementia-addled old man behind the wheel of a car. He didn't even do well on a bicycle. So maybe driving with Biden would be a more apt slogan than riding with Biden. Also, I like that the emoji show show up as, you see how they show up there? Face red, droopy eyes, hand pink waving. I hope you're having a good night too, honestly, even if you're voting for Biden. I don't wish you any ill intent. I wish you'd change your mind. Be happy to talk with you about it. But, yeah, I'm not here to wish people ill will. They named this spot Biden Falls. Let's see if we can find someone to raid. And then I'm going to go downstairs and maybe go to bed. Wouldn't that be nice? Get some sleep. Sleep. All right. Oh, EOD's on. Let's raid him. EOD's a good guy. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I probably won't be streaming tomorrow evening. Perhaps Sunday night. Perhaps you'll see me. Hopefully I have some updates on bigger shows that I'm going to be doing by then. We'll see, such as Tim Pool's show. But I'm not sure. It's all right. Regardless, I am sleepy though, man. I'm going to appreciate a good night's sleep tonight. Oh, let's end the stream with a big yawn talk. How's that go? Yeah, thank you to all you. I really appreciate it. So hopefully I get to read more of that stuff and we'll talk about it. There's other stuff that I want to talk about. You're going to watch me destroy that my gutsy guy? When's that? Am I debating him? Or have I already debated him? I don't know. I've argued with him on X, but... before. Is that someone I debated? Yeah, whoever it was, I probably crushed them. All right. Thank you all so much. I appreciate all of you. Enjoy this raid of EOD. As always, have a good one.